She took a day off in the middle of the week. That was the first red flag. My wife, Sarah, was a workaholic. She always said she loved her job, and taking a day off without a solid reason was not like her. And yet, out of nowhere, there was this random day off with no explanation. When I asked, she just waved it off, saying, "Nothing special, just needed some time to rest." But the next day, I noticed a white envelope lying on the kitchen table. No sender, no labels, just an envelope. I'd never snooped in her mail before, but this one looked different. By the time we sat down for dinner, it had disappeared. I hadn't even had time to ask her about it. Then came the doctor visits. More than usual. But here's the thing, she wasn't sick, and she definitely wasn't talking about any health concerns. She just casually mentioned needing to see a doctor, then return home later than expected, with this strange, distant look on her face. The kind of look that told me there was something more, something she wasn't saying. And it started eating at me. Then came the moment that flipped my entire world. One night, while she was passed out on the couch, I went to the kitchen for some water and stumbled upon her phone. She left it unlocked. I'm not the kind of guy who snoops through his wife's phone, but something inside me just snapped. Not out of jealousy or distrust, but because too many things weren't adding up. I opened her email. "Your DNA test results are ready." The subject line hit me like a punch in the gut. A test. A DNA test. A test for what? For whom? Why? I opened the email, and there it was. "Your DNA sample has been received, and the paternity test with your former partner is complete." I was boiling with rage. She'd been secretly doing paternity tests. Not just one, but several. With her exes. And it wasn't about me. Never in my life had I felt this level of betrayal and anger at the same time. All this time, she was doing something absolutely twisted behind my back. I stared at the phone, trying to process what I was seeing. For a moment, I felt nothing. Just emptiness. It was like everything I thought I knew about her was erased in a single second. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was a stranger. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there next to her, while she slept peacefully, replaying everything I just discovered. What else was she hiding? How far had this gone? Who were these former partners? And what the hell was she trying to figure out? By morning, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I watched Sarah move around the kitchen, making coffee as if nothing had happened. She smiled at me, but all I could see was the web of lies she was tangled in. My mind was racing, trying to figure out how long she'd been doing this. How long she'd been carrying on with her little DNA tests behind my back. Playing detective with her past lovers while I sat here like a fool. I couldn't confront her right away. No, that would be too easy. She'd deny it, twist it, maybe even turn the blame on me. I needed more. I needed proof. Something solid. Something she couldn't wriggle out of. I kept my cool and waited for her to leave the house for one of her errands. As soon as she was out the door, I grabbed her laptop. Her password was the same as it had always been, and within seconds I was in. What I found there made me feel physically sick. Emails. So many emails. From different labs. Each one a new test. Each one with a different name. Michael. Jake. David. All exes. All possible fathers. She wasn't just running one test. She was casting a wide net, desperate to find out who the real father was. I sat there, staring at the screen, my blood boiling. I'd been raising our son for the past 7 years, believing he was mine. And now, without even telling me, without a single conversation, she was trying to figure out who he really belonged to. I couldn't decide if I was more furious at her or at myself for not seeing it sooner. Then I found it. An email from last week, just days before I discovered the first clue. It wasn't from a lab, it was from one of her exes, Michael. "I hope this is the last time you're going to drag me into your mess, Sarah. I did the test like you asked. I'm not his father. Stop contacting me." The message hit me like a freight train. She'd been contacting them directly, one by one, pulling them into this nightmare. And the worst part? She hadn't even told me. I wasn't part of the conversation. I was just the guy playing house, oblivious to the fact that she was unraveling everything we'd built, one DNA test at a time. I slammed the laptop shut, my hands shaking with rage. How could she have done this? How could she have looked me in the eyes every day, pretending everything was normal while she was secretly trying to figure out if our son was even mine? That's when it hit me. She wasn't just trying to keep this from me. She was actively hiding it, afraid of what would happen if I found out. Afraid of me, of my reaction. Well, she was about to find out exactly what happens when you lie for years. The next time we talked about this, it wouldn't be a quiet conversation over dinner. It was going to explode, and I had no intention of holding back. I didn't wait long to confront her. After reading that email from Michael, the anger inside me was uncontrollable. She came home that evening, her usual carefree self, carrying a bag of groceries like everything was fine. But I was ready. The second she walked in, I couldn't keep it inside any longer. "Sarah, we need to talk." There must have been something in my voice because she froze for a second. Usually, when I said that, it was about some small issue, bills, plans for the weekend, something boring. But this time, she knew. I could see it in her eyes, the flicker of fear, the calculation. She looked at me for a beat too long, then put the groceries down slowly. "What is it?" she asked, her voice too calm, too smooth. She was already preparing her lies. "I found the emails, Sarah." I said it as flatly as possible, letting the words hang in the air. I wanted to watch her squirm, watch her try to find a way out of this. For a moment, I almost hoped she would break down, confess everything, and beg for forgiveness. But I should have known better. "Emails? What are you talking about?" She frowned, playing dumb, her voice laced with confusion. Classic Sarah. Always the actress. I walked over to the kitchen counter, opened her laptop, and pulled up the emails I had read earlier. The ones from the labs. The one from Michael. I turned the screen toward her and waited. Her eyes flicked to the screen and back to me. There was a brief flash of panic before she quickly composed herself. She didn't even flinch. "Oh, this?" She shrugged. "It's nothing. Just something stupid from years ago." "Years ago?" I practically growled. "That email from Michael is from last week." She blinked, but didn't lose her composure. "Fine," she said, crossing her arms. "You caught me." I was curious. I didn't think it was a big deal. Not a big deal? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You've been secretly doing paternity tests behind my back, contacting your exes, trying to figure out if our son is even mine. And that's not a big deal?" She rolled her eyes and sighed like I was being the unreasonable one. "Look, I didn't want to bother you with this. It's my past. I thought I could just get some answers quietly and move on. Why are you getting so worked up?" The arrogance in her voice made my blood boil. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't apologetic. She wasn't even embarrassed. She had been running this sick experiment behind my back, and now she acted like I was the one overreacting. "I've been raising our son for 7 years, Sarah," I said, my voice tight. "Do you know what it feels like to find out that you've been sneaking around, testing to see if he's even mine? Without telling me?" She shrugged again, and then came the real punch to the gut. "Well, maybe he isn't yours. Maybe you're not even the right person to be raising him. Ever think of that?" I was stunned, speechless. Did she really just say that? Was she implying that I didn't deserve to be his father if I wasn't biologically related? My hands clenched into fists, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me explode. "What are you trying to say, Sarah?" I asked slowly, carefully, like I was tiptoeing around a bomb. "I'm saying," she started, stepping closer, her face cold and indifferent, "that maybe you're not the only one who's been in the dark. Maybe I wasn't sure about a lot of things back then. Maybe I wanted to figure out what's best for me and my son. And if that means finding out who his real father is, then that's my business. Her son, not our son." She said it like I was nothing more than a bystander in my own family, like the last 7 years of being a father meant nothing. I couldn't take it anymore. "Sarah, this isn't just about you. This is about me, about our son, about the family we built. You've been treating this like a game, playing with people's lives, and for what? To satisfy your curiosity? To fix some mistake from your past? And what, you think you can just keep this quiet? Sweep it under the rug?" That's when she dropped the final bombshell. "Quiet?" she said, her lips curling into a cruel smile. "You're the only one who didn't know. Everyone else knows." I froze, the words hitting me like a punch to the gut. Everyone else knew? What did she mean by that? My mind raced. My heart pounded in my chest. If everyone knew, how far had this gone? I wasn't just betrayed. I was humiliated. And now, I had to figure out how to burn down the mess she'd created. But first, I was going to make sure everyone in this town knew the truth. Everyone else knows. The words echoed in my head like a hammer to the skull. I stood there, staring at her, trying to process what she had just said. My throat felt dry, my stomach knotted. Was she serious? Everyone else knew? My mind raced through faces, our friends, our neighbors, people from the school. Had they all been in on this while I walked around like a clueless idiot? I stepped closer to her, my voice barely a whisper but filled with rage. What do you mean, everyone else knows? She didn't flinch. Instead, she laughed. A cold, cruel laugh that sent chills down my spine. "Oh, come on," she said, waving her hand as if it was all a big joke. "Did you really think you were the only one left in the dark? You've always been so oblivious. People talk, maybe not to your face, but they know. They've known for a while." I felt like the floor had just dropped out from under me. This wasn't just about the DNA tests anymore. This was bigger, much bigger. Sarah had been living a double life, and somehow the people around us knew. They'd seen what was going on behind the scenes while I was blinded by trust. I clenched my fists, trying to stay composed, but my voice betrayed my fury. "Who knew, Sarah? Who the hell knew?" She shrugged, still acting like it was no big deal. "Some of the moms from school, mostly. Couple of friends. My sister, obviously. It wasn't exactly a secret." Couldn't breathe. The moms from school, the same moms who smiled at me when I dropped our son off, who waved from across the parking lot. All while knowing my wife was testing our son's paternity with her ex-lovers? They knew and they said nothing. "And you didn't think it was worth telling me?" I asked, my voice low, dangerous. "Oh, please," she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "What difference would it make? You've always played the good guy. You're so concerned about your perfect little life, your perfect little family, that you'd probably forgive me anyway. Honestly, it was easier this way." That was it. The final blow. The complete lack of remorse, the way she talked about our life like it was just a story, her story, with me as some bit player. My hands trembled, and my heart pounded in my chest. I felt like I was going to snap. But instead of screaming, instead of throwing things, I laughed. It wasn't planned. It just came out sharp and bitter. The absurdity of it all. The secrets, the lies, the audacity she had to turn this into some kind of twisted game. It was too much. "Easier this way?" I repeated, shaking my head in disbelief. "You think you're getting away with this? You think you can just run around testing our son behind my back, telling your friends, and humiliating me, and there won't be consequences?" She gave me a cold smile. "What are you going to do, huh? Tell everyone? Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to hear your side of the story. But guess what? They already know mine." And that's when I realized what she had done. She'd been laying the groundwork for months, maybe even years, planting seeds, telling her side of the story, playing the victim. By the time I found out, she had already made sure everyone around us saw me as the clueless husband, the one too dumb to see the cracks in his own life. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. She thought she was in control, thought she'd beaten me at this sick game. But she didn't realize something. I wasn't going to play by her rules anymore. I stepped closer, closing the distance between us until I was inches from her face. "Oh, I'll tell everyone, Sarah. But it won't be your version of the story." She raised an eyebrow, her smile faltering for the first time. "What are you talking about? You think you've been careful, but you're sloppy. You've been leaving a trail, and now, I've got it all." I was bluffing, but the flicker of doubt in her eyes told me it was working. "Every email, every test, every name. You think this ends with you? You think the people you've been dragging into this want their lives blown up, too? Because I'm not just going to tell my side. I'm going to tell everyone's side." She went pale. Finally, I'd hit a nerve. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed, but there was fear in her voice now. "Oh, I would. And I will," I said, stepping back and picking up my phone. "I'm done being the fool in your little story. Now it's my turn to talk." I turned and headed for the door, but before I walked out, I looked back at her one last time. She was standing there, frozen, the smugness drained from her face. For the first time, she looked unsure. And that's when I knew I had her. "This isn't just about us anymore, Sarah. This is about everyone who knew and said nothing." I opened the door and walked out, already planning my next move. I wasn't going to stop until everyone knew the truth. And this time, She wouldn't be able to hide behind her lies. It was time to burn it all down. I stormed out of the house, heart racing, head spinning. The air outside felt thick, like it was trying to suffocate me. I could barely process what had just happened, what Sarah had admitted. Everyone knew. Her friends, the other moms, her sister, they all knew about her betrayal, about the DNA tests, about everything. And not one of them had said a word to me. They just let me walk around with a smile on my face, raising a kid that, for all I knew, might not even be mine. I got in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I needed to think. I needed to figure out how to tear down the whole mess she had created. But this wasn't just about Sarah anymore. No, it was bigger than that. It was about everyone who helped her lie. I didn't go far. Just a few blocks down, I parked at the edge of the neighborhood park and sat there, staring out the windshield, trying to calm down enough to think straight. That's when I realized something. I wasn't going to play her game. Sarah had been in control for too long, making her moves behind my back. But now that I knew everything, it was time to take back that control. And I wasn't going to stop at just confronting her. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the list of contacts. The faces of the people who'd smiled at me, laughed with me, acted like friends, flashed through my mind. They thought they were safe, that Sarah had spun her web so tightly that nothing could touch them. But I was done being the fool. I started typing. Message 1. I know what you did. I know you've been covering for Sarah. We're going to talk soon. Sent. Message 2. Did you think I wouldn't find out? I've got all the proof. We'll be discussing this very soon. Sent. Each text was like throwing gasoline on the fire that was now raging inside me. I wasn't bluffing anymore. I was done playing defense. I knew I couldn't take Sarah down alone, but I didn't have to. If her web of lies had kept her protected, then tearing it apart would expose everything. She relied on those people, trusted them to keep her secrets, and I was about to make sure every single one of them knew that their silence had consequences. But I wasn't finished yet. No, this was just the start. I had something better in mind for Sarah, something she wouldn't see coming. I remembered how smug she'd been, standing there in the kitchen, acting like she'd won. But she didn't realize one thing. I wasn't the kind of man who just slinks away and lets things fall apart quietly. If she thought this was over, she was dead wrong. I scrolled through my phone again, this time opening Facebook. I knew it was petty, I knew it was a bit reckless, but at that moment I didn't care. If Sarah thought she could play this game in the shadows, it was time to drag it all into the light. My fingers hovered over the screen. A single post. That's all it would take. A single post, and the whole town would know exactly who she was, what she'd done, and how she'd been manipulating everyone around her. She'd built her world on lies, and I was about to knock the whole thing down with a single keystroke. I started typing, my heart pounding in my chest. To everyone in this town who thought I didn't know. To everyone who smiled in my face while knowing the truth. I found out. I found out about the DNA tests, the lies, the secret Sarah's been hiding. And now, so will you. My finger hovered over the post button. I could feel the weight of it, the final step that would set everything in motion. I imagined the shockwaves this would send through our little community, the whispers, the questions. But more than anything, I imagined Sarah's face when she realized that she couldn't hide anymore. But then I stopped. My finger still hovered, but I didn't press down, because I realized something. This wasn't enough. A single post would cause chaos, sure. It would blow up in her face for a few days, maybe even weeks. But it wasn't enough to destroy her. Not the way she'd destroyed me. Not the way she'd left me standing there, feeling like my entire life had been a lie. I needed something bigger. Something that would hit her harder than just gossip. I needed her to feel the weight of her actions publicly. And I needed her to watch everything crumble around her, knowing it was her own fault. I put the phone down and leaned back in my seat, my mind racing with possibilities. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. I was going to make sure that when it all came crashing down, there would be nothing left for her to hide behind. I pulled out of the parking lot, my head clearer than it had been in days. I had a plan now, and Sarah, she wasn't ready for what was coming. This was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. The ride home felt different this time. The familiar streets looked sharper, like every house, every car, every tree was somehow complicit in this twisted game Sarah had been playing. I had a plan now, something bigger than just a Facebook post or a few angry texts. That would have been too easy. Too temporary. Sarah needed to feel the walls closing in around her, piece by piece, until she had nowhere left to turn. And I was going to be the one pulling those walls down. When I got home, the house was quiet. Sarah wasn't in the kitchen or the living room. For a second, I wondered if she had left, run off to one of her friends after our last confrontation. But then I heard a sound, a low murmur of voices coming from upstairs. I followed the noise, every step heavier with the weight of what I was about to do. The voices got louder as I reached the bedroom door. It was slightly ajar, and I pushed it open to find Sarah on the phone, pacing back and forth. Her back was to me, and she hadn't noticed I was there yet. I stood there just listening, taking it all in. "He's acting weird, like he knows something," she said, her voice low but tense. "I mean, it's not like I planned for this to happen. He wasn't supposed to find out." She paused, listening to the other person on the line, her hand gripping the phone tightly. I felt a cold wave of realization wash over me. She was talking about me. "Well, what do you want me to do? Tell him everything? He's not going to forgive me, not after this." There was another pause, and then she said something that made my blood run cold. "I don't care. He was never supposed to know the truth." It took everything in me not to storm in right then and there. But I didn't. I held back, waiting, letting her dig herself deeper. "Look, it doesn't matter anymore. I have a plan. If he tries to do anything, I'll make sure people see him as the bad guy. I've been laying the groundwork for months. He won't know what hit him." I stepped into the room. "Oh, I think I know exactly what's coming." Sarah spun around, her face going pale. She dropped the phone onto the bed, her eyes wide with shock. For the first time, she looked genuinely scared. What are you doing here?" she stammered, trying to regain her composure, but it was too late. She had no control now. I picked up her phone from the bed, glancing at the screen. The name on the other end was someone I didn't recognize, probably one of her allies in this whole mess. I turned it off and tossed it onto the dresser. "Who was that, Sarah?" I asked, my voice low but steady. She swallowed hard, stepping back toward the window, like she was looking for an escape. It's none of your business." "None of my business?" I couldn't help but laugh. "You've been running around behind my back, making me look like an idiot to everyone in this town, and you think it's none of my business?" Her eyes flicked to the door, then back to me. "What do you want from me?" she asked, trying to sound defiant, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "I want the truth," I said, stepping closer. "No more lies, no more games, just the truth." She hesitated for a moment, then crossed her arms, her voice sharp again. "You already know the truth. What else do you want? You think you're some kind of victim here? You think I owe you anything after everything?" I stared at her, trying to understand how she could stand there and act like I was the problem, like she was the one who had been wronged. But then I realized something. She wasn't going to break. Not the way I wanted her to. She was too deep into her own web, too convinced that she could spin her way out of this no matter what I did. And that's when I knew exactly what I had to do. "I don't need you to confess, Sarah," I said, my voice calm but firm, "because I already have everything I need." Her expression changed, her defiance cracking just a little. "What are you talking about? I have your emails, your messages, every lab result, every name you've dragged into this. You think you've covered your tracks, but you've been sloppy. And now, I'm going to make sure that everyone sees the real you, not the version you've been feeding them." She took a step forward, her eyes narrowing. "What are you going to do? Post about it? Send out some texts? You think that'll stop me?" I shook my head, a cold smile creeping onto my face. "No, that's too small, too easy. You've been manipulating people, Sarah. But there's one thing you forgot. People turn on you fast when they realize you've been using them." Her face fell, her confidence draining. She knew what I was saying. She knew exactly how fragile her web of lies really was. "And I'm going to make sure everyone you've manipulated knows that they were just a pawn in your game," I continued. "You're not just going to lose me. You're going to lose everything. Your friends, your reputation, your life. I'm going to tear it all down." She stood there, silent, her face pale as the full weight of what I was saying hit her. She knew I wasn't bluffing. "Don't do this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, we can fix this." I laughed, shaking my head. "You still think this is fixable? You're already finished, Sarah. You just don't know it yet." And with that, I turned and walked out, leaving her standing there, alone, with her empire of lies crumbling around her. The trap was set, and now it was only a matter of time before everything she had built came crashing down. As I walked out of the house, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: control. For months, maybe even years, Sarah had been pulling the strings, weaving her lies around me and everyone else. But now the tables had turned, and this time she wouldn't be the one calling the shots. I drove to the one place where I knew I'd find the first piece of the puzzle: the school. The school where I'd been dropping off our son every day, greeting the other parents like nothing was wrong. Those same parents who'd been whispering behind my back. Sarah had planted her story with them long ago, making me out to be clueless, weak, maybe even the villain in her twisted version of events. But now it was time for me to flip that narrative. When I arrived at the school, it was mid-afternoon, and most of the kids were still in class. The parking lot was half empty, just a few cars scattered around. I wasn't here to make a scene, not yet, anyway. I was here to plant the first seeds of doubt. I spotted one of the moms I recognized from the drop-offs, Megan, standing by her car, scrolling through her phone. She was one of Sarah's friends, or at least she used to be. The two of them had been close for years, but I'd noticed that Megan had been keeping her distance lately. Maybe Sarah's web had stretched too thin. Maybe Megan had started to see through it. I was about to make sure of it. I approached her, my heart pounding but my mind clear. "Hey, Megan," I said, keeping my voice calm, almost casual. "Got a minute?" She looked up, startled, and for a second I saw the flash of guilt in her eyes. She knew something, maybe not everything, but enough to make her uncomfortable around me. Yeah," she said, forcing a smile. "What's up?" I didn't waste any time. "I know Sarah's been talking. About me. About everything." Her smile faltered. "I don't know what you mean." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Look, Megan. I'm not here to make a scene, but I need you to know something. You've only heard one side of the story, and I'm about to make sure the whole truth comes out." She blinked, clearly caught off guard. I don't. I've seen the emails, Megan." I cut in. "I've seen the texts, the messages to her exes, the lies she's been telling everyone. And I'm guessing you didn't know that part. Did you?" Her face went pale. No, I didn't know about any tests." I could see the cracks forming. "Good." I pressed on. "Sarah's been manipulating people for a long time, making them believe her version of things. But that version's about to fall apart. And when it does, you don't want to be caught on the wrong side of it." She looked down, biting her lip, clearly torn. I could tell she was scared, not just of what I was saying, but of being tangled up in Sarah's mess any longer. "I just thought, she said." Megan's voice trailed off and she shook her head. "I don't know what to believe anymore." "That's because she's been controlling the narrative," I said softly. "But trust me, when the truth comes out, everyone's going to see the real Sarah. And I don't want you to be one of the people who went down with her." There was a long pause. Then finally Megan nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "I won't say anything. I don't want to be involved in this." "Good choice," I said, stepping back. "But just remember, this is going to blow up soon. And when it does, people are going to be looking at who stayed silent." I left her standing there, shaken, knowing that the first domino had fallen. Megan wasn't the only one Sarah had confided in, but she was the easiest to crack. The others would follow soon enough. Sarah's network of allies was crumbling, and she had no idea. I got back in the car, my hands steady, my mind clear. I could feel it, the shift, the balance of power tipping in my favor. I wasn't done yet. This was just the beginning of the fallout. The first ripple that would spread through our small town until it reached everyone Sarah had pulled into her web. But there was one more person I needed to see before this all went public. Sarah's sister, Jessica. Jessica had been Sarah's closest confidant for as long as I could remember. If anyone knew the full extent of what Sarah had been up to, it was her. But Jessica had always been quiet, observant, calculating. She wasn't like the other moms who blindly followed Sarah's lead. She was smarter than that. And if I was going to take Sarah down, I needed Jessica on my side, or at the very least, I needed her neutralized. I pulled into Jessica's driveway, my pulse quickening. The house looked the same as it always had, neat, orderly, picture-perfect on the outside. But inside, I knew was where the real battle would be fought. I rang the doorbell, and after a moment, Jessica opened the door. Her face was unreadable, as always, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of surprise. She hadn't expected me. "Can we talk?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She studied me for a moment, then stepped aside, letting me in without a word. The door clicked shut behind me, and I knew this conversation would be the one that decided everything. Sarah wasn't the only one with secrets, and it was time to find out just how deep this rabbit hole went. As Jessica closed the door behind me, I could feel the weight of what was coming. She wasn't like the others. Sarah's sister had always been sharp, cautious, the kind of person who played her cards close to the chest. If anyone could unravel Sarah's web of lies from the inside, it was her. We stood in her living room, the air thick with tension. Jessica didn't offer me a seat, didn't ask why I was there. She just folded her arms and watched me, her face neutral but her eyes calculating. She knew something was up. "What do you want?" she asked, breaking the silence. "I know everything, Jessica. About the DNA tests, the lies, the way Sarah's been manipulating everyone. I'm done playing her game." She raised an eyebrow but didn't react the way I expected. No shock, no denial. Instead, she let out a long breath, her gaze dropping for a moment before meeting mine again. "So, you finally figured it out." Her calmness caught me off guard. "You knew." Jessica nodded, slowly, like she'd been carrying a weight for too long. "I've known for a while, but I didn't think it was my place to get involved." "Not your place," I snapped. "She's been dragging everyone into her mess, testing our son's paternity behind my back, and you just stood by and watched?" "I'm not proud of it," she said quietly, her voice steady. "But Sarah, she can be manipulative even with me. She kept me in the dark for a long time, too. By the time I realized what was going on, she'd already built her version of the story. I didn't want to blow up your family." I took a deep breath, the pieces clicking into place. Jessica had known more than she let on, but she hadn't acted. And now it was too late for neutrality. "You're smart, Jessica. You know how this ends," I said, my voice cold but calm. "Sarah's empire is crumbling, and I'm going to make sure she doesn't get back up. But I need to know, are you going to keep covering for her? Or are you going to help me bring this all down?" She looked at me, her face unreadable for a moment. Then, she slowly nodded. "I won't stop you. She needs to face the consequences. But I'm not going to be the one who pushes the first domino. That's on you." "Fair enough," I said, feeling a sense of finality wash over me. Jessica wasn't my enemy, but she wasn't an ally either. She was letting me make the final move, and that's exactly what I was about to do. I left her house with a clear purpose. This was it. There were no more secrets, no more shadows for Sarah to hide in. I had the emails, the messages, the proof, and now I had the last piece of the puzzle. Jessica's quiet, unspoken approval. When I got home, I sat down at my computer. I opened the folder with all the evidence I'd gathered. Every email, every lab result, every thread that Sarah had woven into her tangled web. It was all there, and now it was time to burn it all down. I started typing. The post wasn't long, just the essentials. The tests, the lies, the manipulation. But I made sure it was enough to expose everything, to let the world see the real Sarah. I attached the emails, the results, the messages from her exes, and with one final glance, I hit post. It was done. The truth was out. And Sarah's empire of lies? It was finished. So my wife Jenna's been acting weird. Not your run-of-the-mill, "I'm stressed out from work" weird, but the kind of weird that keeps you up at night, gnawing at your brain, making you question everything. But here's the kicker. She's been too smooth about it. You know what I mean? Like she's practiced this act so many times. She's got it down to a damn science. This all started when she got that new job at some real estate firm. The money was good, hours were flexible, but then the business dinners started happening. At first, it was once a month, fine, whatever. Then once a week. Now, she's busy 3, for nights a week, and I barely even see her unless she's rushing out the door. 2 weeks ago, it was the first time I caught a whiff of something real, something rotten. She was texting on her phone late at night, smiling at the screen. I ask, "Who's that?" And she doesn't even flinch. "Oh, Maya," she says, not even bothering to look up. Maya, her friend. The one who always seems to show up when something shady's going down. I've always had a bad feeling about her. I don't push it then. I bide my time. But last night, Jenna casually mentions Maya's throwing some party. All girls, nothing major. She's already decided she's going. Didn't even bother to ask what I thought about it. Normally, I'd let it slide, but something about the way she said it, so dismissive, so sure I wouldn't question her, set me off. "Are you really going out again? It's been every other night this week, Jenna. I'm not okay with this." She doesn't even pause, just shoots me this smug little smirk. "Ethan, don't start. It's just a party. Not like I need your permission." Something about that grin. It wasn't just her blowing me off. It was more like she was daring me to challenge her. Like she had the upper hand and knew it. It made my skin crawl. "I don't trust it," I said, trying to keep my cool. "You've been pulling this party and work thing out of nowhere. What the hell's really going on?" She stopped dead in her tracks, turned to face me, and crossed her arms, that smugness replaced by ice. "Seriously? We're doing this now? You really want to play the insecure husband card again? What's your problem?" She said it with so much contempt, like I disgusted her. I stared back, unsure of what to even say. She wasn't even pretending to care at this point. There was no conversation here, just this wall of indifference, daring me to climb it. I wasn't about to let it go. I grabbed her phone off the counter, flipped through the notifications. I wasn't proud of it, but at this point I needed answers. She lunged for it, but I pulled away. "What are you hiding?" I asked. She let out a short, cold laugh. "Give me my phone, Ethan. I don't need to explain myself to you." I was fuming now. I unlocked the phone. We'd swapped passcodes months ago for emergencies, and this definitely felt like one. The first thing I saw wasn't Maya. It was a guy named Kyle. "Kyle?" I said, my voice tight. "Who the hell is Kyle?" She looked at me with this mix of irritation and pity, like I was too stupid to understand something obvious. "He's just a friend from work. A friend from work, right?" I started scrolling, and there it was, messages that weren't just business-related. Flirty, casual, late-night chats, talking about how she couldn't wait to see him at the party. My stomach twisted. "This isn't just some party, is it?" I said, barely holding it together. "You've been lying to me this whole time." She stepped closer, snatched the phone out of my hand, and her expression shifted. Not to guilt, not to apology, but to anger. "You went through my phone?" she practically hissed. "What the heck is wrong with you?" Suddenly, I wasn't the one on trial here. She was. And yet, somehow, she flipped it like I was the one who'd crossed a line. But I wasn't backing down. Not this time. "Who is Kyle, Jenna?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "What the hell are you doing with him?" She stood there, eyes locked on mine, and I swear, for a split second, I saw a flash of something. Guilt, maybe, or fear. But it was gone in an instant. Instead, she smiled, this small, dangerous smile. "You really want to know?" she asked, her voice low and mocking. "Fine, I'll tell you. He's more of a man than you'll ever be." Those words hit me like a freight train. I couldn't even process them. She said it so casually, like it didn't matter, like I didn't matter. "I'm done with this conversation," she said, grabbing her purse and heading for the door. "I'll be back when I feel like it. Don't wait up." And just like that, she was gone. Out the door, off to the so-called party, with a man I'd never even heard of until tonight. She didn't even look back. I sat there, stunned, staring at the door. A part of me wanted to explode, to tear the whole house apart. But another part of me was calm. Too calm. I wasn't gonna sit here like a fool waiting for her to come home with more excuses. No, this time I was gonna follow her. And whatever I found, there would be no more lies. I didn't waste any time. As soon as she slammed the door behind her, I grabbed my keys and phone, heart pounding in my chest. There was no way I was sitting around like some fool, waiting for her to come home and feed me another pack of lies. I opened the tracking app, something we set up years ago when she'd constantly lose her phone. The little blue dot popped up on the screen, moving slowly through the city. But here's where it got weird. She wasn't headed to Maya's place or the club she mentioned earlier. No, she was going in the opposite direction, towards the outskirts of town. I tried to stay calm, tried to tell myself she could be going anywhere. Maybe a detour, maybe picking someone up, but that gut feeling was gnawing at me and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I followed the dot in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. It felt like hours passed as I tailed her, staying just far enough behind not to be noticed. The roads got quieter, darker, as the city lights faded in the rearview mirror. Finally, her car stopped. I pulled over a block away, watching from a distance. She'd parked at a rundown motel. The kind you'd never think of unless you were trying to hide something. Couldn't believe it. A motel. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Was she meeting someone here? What was so important that she had to come all the way out here? Part of me hoped I was wrong, that maybe it was some weird misunderstanding. But the other part, the part that had been suspicious for months, knew better. I sat there, debating with myself. I could turn around, go home, pretend I never saw this. But the anger boiling inside me wouldn't let me. I needed to know. So, I got out of the car, walked slowly towards the entrance, feeling like I was stepping into a nightmare I wasn't ready to face. Her car was tucked away in the back corner of the lot, hidden from the main road. My heart was beating so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. As I approached the door, I heard voices. Muffled, but definitely two people. One was hers, the other, a man. I froze outside the door, hand clenched in a fist, ready to knock but paralyzed by the reality of what I might find on the other side. I strained to hear, catching bits and pieces of their conversation. Laughter, low whispers. My stomach churned. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I knocked. No, I pounded on the door. The laughter stopped. I heard footsteps. Then the door creaked open just a crack. Jenna stood there, her hair slightly messed up, her shirt wrinkled, looking like she'd seen a ghost. Behind her, I saw him, sitting casually on the edge of the bed, smirking like he didn't have a care in the world. Everything inside me shattered. Her eyes met mine, and for a split second there was fear. Not guilt, not shame, fear. But it was gone just as quickly, replaced by this cold, almost detached look. Like she had already made up her mind about how this was going to go. Like she wasn't going to give me the satisfaction of seeing her break. "Ethan," she said, her voice calm. Too calm. "What are you doing here?" I couldn't even speak. My throat felt tight. My chest was burning. I forced my way past her, stepping inside the room without an invitation. The guy, Kyle, I assumed, leaned back on the bed, giving me a slow, smug look. He was shirtless, his jeans unbuttoned like he'd just finished getting dressed. He didn't seem surprised to see me at all. In fact, it looked like he was enjoying this. "You've got to be kidding me," I finally managed to choke out. "A motel, Jenna? Really?" She didn't respond, just crossed her arms and leaned against the door, like she was waiting for me to finish my little performance. It was the look that did it. The complete lack of remorse, the arrogance, the sheer audacity of it all. "So, this is it, huh? You've been sneaking around with him?" I pointed at Kyle, who barely reacted, just kept watching like this was a show he'd seen before. Jenna sighed, rolling her eyes. "Ethan, you're overreacting." "Overreacting," I barked. "I followed you here. You lied to me about everything. You said you were going to a party." She didn't flinch. "I am. Or I was. Just not the kind of party you were thinking of." The way she said it, so casual, so cruel, made my blood boil. I took a step toward Kyle, fists clenched, but Jenna stepped between us, finally showing some emotion. She didn't look scared, though. She looked pissed. "Don't," she snapped. "This isn't his fault." I stared at her in disbelief. "Not his fault? Are you out of your mind? You're screwing around behind my back, and you're going to stand there and defend him?" Kyle, still lounging on the bed like he owned the place, finally spoke up. "Look, man, this isn't personal. I didn't know you were still in the picture." I almost laughed at how absurd it was. The nerve of this guy. "Still in the picture?" I repeated. "I'm her husband." Jenna let out a frustrated sigh. "Ethan, stop being dramatic. This isn't what you think it is. Then what the hell is it, Jenna? Enlighten me. Her eyes flicked between me and Kyle, and then she said the last thing I expected. It's over, Ethan. I didn't want to do it like this, but you wouldn't let it go. I was going to tell you after. After what? I spat. After you had your fun? She didn't even deny it. After I figured out how to end it without you making a scene like you are now. I stood there, speechless, as the weight of what she was saying sunk in. This wasn't just an affair. This was the end. She had already made up her mind, probably weeks ago, and I had been too blind, too trusting to see it. I don't believe this, I whispered, more to myself than to her. My heart was pounding, my head spinning. I felt like I was falling, and there was nothing to grab onto. I'm done with this conversation, she said coldly, stepping aside and walking toward Kyle, like I wasn't even there. You need to leave, Ethan. I'll be home tomorrow to talk about everything else. Her voice trailed off, but the message was clear. She was done with me, and the worst part, she didn't even care enough to pretend otherwise. Kyle stood up, walking past me toward the door like this was the most natural thing in the world. He opened the door, glancing back at me. Sorry, man, he said, though his tone was anything but apologetic. And just like that, it was over. She didn't say another word, didn't try to explain, didn't try to fix it. She just turned her back on me, on us, like I was nothing, like we had never meant anything at all. I stood there for what felt like forever, the room spinning around me, everything crashing down. And then, without another word, I turned and walked out. I walked out of that motel room feeling like I had left my sanity behind the door. The night was quiet, too quiet, like the world had just stopped caring. My footsteps echoed in the empty parking lot as I made my way to the car, my mind racing but stuck on one thought. It's over. I sat behind the wheel, staring out the windshield, hands trembling. I had no idea what to do next. Drive home? Where even was home anymore? The place where we lived together suddenly felt like a prison I couldn't stand to go back to. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but the anger felt useless. Everything felt useless. I'd imagined this moment so many times. The confrontation, her confessing, the drama of it all. But now that it had happened, it wasn't the explosion I expected. It was worse. It was empty. She didn't care, didn't fight, didn't show even an ounce of regret. The woman I had loved for years, the woman I'd trusted with everything, had simply tossed me aside like garbage. I felt sick, literally nauseous, my stomach twisting like I'd been punched in the gut. All those years, the plans we made, the dreams we shared, gone. And for what? A sleazy affair with some guy who didn't even have the decency to pretend like he wasn't proud of it. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white. This can't be real. It just can't. I kept thinking maybe I could fix it. Maybe there was still something worth saving. But then her voice echoed in my head, that cold, dismissive tone. It's over, Ethan. I banged my fist against the steering wheel, once, twice, until the pain in my hand was the only thing pulling me back to reality. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wasn't going to break down like this. Not here. Not for her. The rational part of me told me to just leave, to go back to the house, pack my things, and never look back. But a darker part, the part fueled by anger, betrayal, wanted something else. It wanted revenge. It wanted her to feel what I was feeling. I picked up my phone, staring at her contact info, my thumb hovering over the call button. I should have called her. Should have let her have it. Told her everything I'd been holding back. But what good would it do? She had already checked out. There was nothing I could say that would change the fact that she didn't care anymore. Instead, I scrolled down, clicked on Kyle's profile in the tracking app. If she thought she could walk away that easily, she was dead wrong. I could find him. I could do something stupid. A part of me wanted to. But another part, the rational part that I barely had a grip on, told me I'd only end up making things worse for myself. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and sat there in silence, breathing heavily, heart racing. How did it come to this? I thought about everything. The way she used to be. The woman I fell in love with. How had it all unraveled so quickly, so quietly, right under my nose? There had to be signs. Things I had ignored. Moments when I should have known something was wrong. But even then, it wouldn't have changed anything, would it? I gave her everything, and she walked away without so much as a second thought. And then it hit me hard. This isn't just about her. It never was. All those nights I stayed silent when I should have fought back. All those times I let things slide because I didn't want to lose her. I wasn't just angry at her. I was angry at myself for being blind, for letting it get this far. I closed my eyes, resting my head against the steering wheel. The weight of it all crushed me, pressing down on my chest until I could barely breathe. There was no going back now, no fixing this, no waking up from this nightmare. Eventually, I started the car and drove. Not home, just away. Away from the motel, away from her, away from whatever life we had built that had turned into a lie. I didn't know where I was going, but anywhere felt better than staying stuck in the mess she'd left behind. I drove in silence, the night stretching out in front of me, cold and empty. I don't even remember how long I drove. Minutes, hours, it was all a blur. The city lights disappeared behind me as the road stretched on, leading me nowhere, and I didn't care. I was running on autopilot, like my mind had shut down just to survive the shock. There was nothing left to process, nothing left to feel. I was numb. At some point, I pulled into a random gas station. I hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, hadn't even thought about what time it was. I just needed to stop moving for a second to get my head straight. I stepped out of the car and leaned against it, staring at the sky, trying to make sense of everything that had just happened. But it wasn't happening. I kept replaying the scene in my head. Jenna, the motel, Cal sitting on the bed like he owned her, like he owned me. I could still hear her voice, cold and dismissive. "It's over, Ethan." She had said it so easily, so casually, like she had rehearsed it 100 times. Like I was nothing but a nuisance she had to get rid of. The rage started bubbling up again, but this time it didn't feel like an explosion. It felt like poison, slow and bitter, seeping into every part of me. It wasn't just about her cheating anymore. It was about the betrayal. The way she had looked at me like I didn't even matter, like the last 7 years meant nothing. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and stared at her name on the screen. Part of me still wanted to call, to scream, to demand answers. But I knew it was pointless. What was she going to say that would make any of this better? More lies? More excuses? I couldn't stand to hear her voice again. Not after what she'd done. I threw the phone into the passenger seat and walked into the gas station, trying to clear my head. The fluorescent lights were harsh, the place half empty, just a bored cashier scrolling through his phone. I grabbed a bottle of water and headed to the counter, my thoughts still spiraling. As I handed the guy some cash, my phone buzzed in the car. For a second, my heart jumped. Maybe it was her. Maybe she had realized what she'd done. Maybe she was calling to apologize, to beg for forgiveness. But then the anger hit again. Why would I even want that? I walked back to the car and checked the phone. It wasn't Jenna. It was Maya. She'd sent me a message. "Hey, you okay? Jenna's been acting off. Thought you should know." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Why the hell was Maya messaging me now? She had always been Jenna's closest friend, the one who probably encouraged her to act this way. I was half tempted to ignore it, but something about her timing seemed too strange. Why would she be reaching out now, of all times? My fingers hovered over the screen, then I typed back, "I'm fine." "What do you mean, acting off?" I didn't expect much, honestly. Maybe she'd send some vague message about how Jenna was just going through a phase, trying to justify her behavior. But a few seconds later, my phone buzzed again. "Look, I didn't want to get involved, but there's something you should know about Kyle. I don't think Jenna knows what she's dealing with." What the hell? Now my heart was racing for a different reason. What was Maya trying to say? Jenna knew exactly what she was doing, didn't she? I typed back quickly. "What do you mean? What about Kyle?" A long pause. I could see the little dots on the screen indicating she was typing, then stopping, then typing again. Finally, the message came through. "I think he's dangerous. I didn't know at first, but I found out some stuff about him. He's been in trouble with some people. You should watch your back." I stared at the message, trying to process it. Dangerous? Kyle didn't look dangerous. He looked like a sleazy jerk. Sure, but nothing more. But then I thought about how smug he had been, how Jenna had seemed almost tense. like there was something more going on behind the surface. Suddenly, 1,000 questions hit me. Was this why Jenna had been acting so strange? Was she in over her head with this guy? Had he manipulated her, threatened her somehow? Or was Maya just stirring the pot? Before I could respond, Maya sent another message. I'm serious, Ethan. You need to be careful. I don't know the whole story, but this guy isn't who he says he is. If you want to talk, call me. I leaned back in my seat, my mind spinning. Dangerous? Could that really be it? Was Jenna in some kind of trouble that I didn't know about? Or was this just another layer of lies and deception? Everything I thought I knew about the situation was unraveling in front of me, and I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. One thing was clear, though, this wasn't just about an affair. There was something much darker going on, and I had a feeling I was only scratching the surface. I sat there, gripping my phone so tightly it felt like it might crack under the pressure. Maya's messages played over and over in my head. Dangerous. Watch your back. The words seemed absurd at first, but the more I thought about it, the more they began to make sense. That smug look on Kyle's face when I walked into the motel. It wasn't just arrogance. It was control. What the hell had Jenna gotten herself into? I stared at Maya's last message for a long time before finally texting her back. Call me. Seconds later, the phone rang, and my heart rate spiked. I hesitated, then answered, trying to sound calm even though my mind was racing. Ethan? Maya's voice came through, nervous and hesitant. Yeah, what's going on, Maya? What do you know about Kyle? She took a deep breath before speaking, like she was trying to figure out how to start. Look, I don't know everything, but I've been hearing things. Kyle's not just some guy Jenna met at work. He's involved with some shady people. He's been in and out of trouble with the law. And there's talk that he owes a lot of money to the wrong people. My stomach twisted. So what? Jenna's just... what mixed up in all of this now? She's his cover or something? I don't know, Ethan. I honestly don't. But ever since she started seeing him, she's been acting different. More secretive. More on edge. First, I thought it was just some affair. But I think it's more than that now. He's dangerous. You need to stay away from him. If he finds out you're looking into this... I cut her off, frustrated and confused. If he's so dangerous, why the hell is Jenna still with him? What does he have on her? Maya was silent for a moment. I don't know, Ethan. Maybe she's in too deep. Maybe she feels trapped. Trapped. That word hit me hard. My mind flashed back to the motel room, to the way Jenna had stood between me and Kyle, almost like she was protecting him. But there was something else in her eyes that I hadn't noticed before. Fear. Could she actually be scared of him? Was she stuck in this mess and didn't know how to get out? Why didn't you tell me this sooner, Maya? I asked, the frustration clear in my voice. I could have done something. She sighed. I didn't know if I should get involved. Jenna, she stopped talking to me about it, and I thought maybe you two could work it out. But after seeing you at the motel tonight, I knew I had to say something. I didn't want you to get blindsided. Too late for that. I rubbed my forehead, trying to think. If what Maya was saying was true, Jenna wasn't just having an affair. She was caught up in something dangerous. But that didn't change the fact that she'd lied to me for months, that she'd thrown away everything we had. Was I really supposed to just sweep that under the rug because she might be in over her head? No, this was bigger than that now. Ethan, Maya said cautiously, whatever you're thinking of doing, be careful. Don't confront Kyle again. He's unpredictable. I've heard stories. Her words echoed in my head as I hung up the phone. I sat there in the car, staring out into the night, torn between two completely opposite emotions, rage and concern. On one hand, I wanted to burn everything down, confront Jenna again, and force her to tell me the truth. On the other, I was starting to realize that if Kyle was as dangerous as Maya said, I was walking into something much darker than I'd ever imagined. I started the car and drove back toward the city, my mind spinning. I didn't even know where I was going, just that I couldn't sit still anymore. I needed answers. But this wasn't just about confronting Jenna anymore. This was about figuring out how deep this mess went. When I finally pulled up to our house, it felt foreign. This was supposed to be our safe place, but now it felt like the scene of a crime. I walked inside and was met with the suffocating silence of the empty rooms. Every object I passed felt like a reminder of the life Jenna and I were supposed to have, the one that had been ripped apart by lies and betrayal. I sat down on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. How had I missed all of this? How had things gotten so far out of control without me even noticing? I replayed every conversation we'd had in the past few months, looking for clues, signs that something was wrong. But I'd been too blind, too trusting. I had believed every lie she told, every excuse, because I wanted to believe that she wouldn't do this to me. But now it wasn't just about me. Jenna was in real danger, whether she wanted to admit it or not. I couldn't just leave her like this, not when Kyle was involved. I couldn't let her get hurt. But how was I supposed to help her when she was still lying to me, still shutting me out? I grabbed my phone again, my fingers hovering over her contact. I knew she was still with him, still caught up in whatever this was. But now I couldn't just storm in and demand answers. I had to be smarter than that. I needed to find a way to pull her out of this before it was too late, and before Kyle decided to come after me next. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing. It was a text from Jenna. My heart jumped as I read it. "We need to talk. I'll be home in an hour." The words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Finally, she was ready to talk. But I didn't know what that meant. Was she coming home to end things cleanly? Or was there more to this? After Maya's warning, nothing felt certain anymore. Kyle's presence loomed over everything like a shadow. If Jenna was in danger, if she was trapped in something bigger than just an affair, I had to approach this differently. I needed to stay calm. I needed to get the truth without pushing her into a corner. But how? My emotions were a mess. Anger, fear, confusion all twisted together. Part of me wanted to tear into her for everything she had put me through. But another part, the part that had always loved her, wanted to protect her, no matter what she had done. The hour passed slowly, my mind racing as I sat in the living room, waiting for the sound of her car in the driveway. When it finally came, I tensed, my pulse quickening. The door opened, and Jenna walked in, looking different. She was wearing oversized sunglasses, her posture stiff, her face pale. She didn't look like the cold, arrogant woman from last night. She looked scared. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there in the doorway, staring at me like she didn't know where to begin. I waited, letting the silence hang between us. Then finally she spoke. "Ethan, she hesitated, taking a deep breath. "I messed up." I didn't respond. I needed her to keep talking, to explain everything. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she continued, her voice shaking slightly. "It just got out of control." I could see her unraveling in front of me, the mask she had been wearing for so long slipping. But I wasn't going to make this easy for her. "Out of control?" I repeated. "What exactly got out of control, Jenna? You lying to me for months? Or the part where you're screwing around with a guy who's dangerous?" Her head snapped up, eyes wide with shock. "Who told you that?" she asked, almost panicked. I stood up, staring her down. "It doesn't matter who told me. What matters is that you've been lying. And now, I find out that Kyle isn't just some guy from work. What the hell have you gotten yourself into?" She started to speak, but stopped herself, biting her lip like she was holding something back. My patience was running thin. "Talk, Jenna," I demanded. "What aren't you telling me?" She looked away, hands trembling slightly as she removed her sunglasses, revealing a bruise just under her eye. I froze, my anger instantly replaced by shock. He's not who I thought he was," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It started off as just, I don't even know. But then he started controlling me, threatening me. I thought I could handle it, but I can't. Ethan, I don't know how to get out." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just about her cheating anymore. This was about survival. I stepped closer, trying to keep my voice calm, though inside I was boiling with rage. "Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" She let out a shaky breath, tears forming in her eyes. "Because I thought I could fix it. I thought I could protect you. He's dangerous, Ethan. He has people. And if he finds out, he'll come after you too." I felt sick. Everything was unraveling faster than I could keep up. I wanted to hate her, wanted to scream at her for dragging me into this nightmare. But seeing her like this, bruised, scared, told me this was way bigger than I had realized. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was trapped in something far more dangerous. So what now? I asked, barely able to contain my emotions. What are we supposed to do? She looked at me with desperation. We need to disappear, both of us. I've been trying to figure out a way out, but now that, we don't have time. Kyle's gonna come for me, for us. I'm not safe and neither are you. My head was spinning. Disappear? Leave everything behind? Sounded insane, but at this point, what other option did we have? Kyle was clearly more than just some affair. He was a threat, and Jenna was right in the middle of it. And now, so was I. How long do we have? I asked, my mind already racing ahead. I don't know, she admitted, panic creeping into her voice. Kyle doesn't know that I told you yet, but once he finds out, he'll come. We need to be gone before that happens. This was happening too fast. I needed to think, but there wasn't time. If Kyle was as dangerous as she said, we couldn't afford to wait around for him to make the first move. I had no idea what the next steps looked like, but one thing was clear, we needed to act fast. Whatever our future was going to be, it wasn't safe here anymore. I took a deep breath, my mind spinning with 1,000 questions. But right now, survival was the only thing that mattered. All right, I said, my voice steady but my heart racing. Let's go. Now. Her eyes widened, relief flooding her face. She hadn't expected me to agree, but I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing this because I wasn't about to let Kyle ruin my life any more than he already had. Jenna nodded quickly, heading to the bedroom to pack what little we could take. As I watched her disappear down the hallway, I grabbed my phone, checking the tracker for Kyle. He was still at the motel. For now. But deep down, I knew this wasn't going to be that easy. Kyle wasn't the type of guy you could just walk away from. He'd come looking, and when he did, I'd be ready. We didn't have much time. Jenna was throwing clothes into a bag while I grabbed my essentials. Wallet, keys, a couple of documents. My mind was racing, trying to figure out the next move. We couldn't just vanish into thin air, but we needed a plan. Fast. Every second felt like it brought Kyle closer. I could feel the tension in the air as Jenna packed. She moved quickly, but her hands shook, the bruise on her face a constant reminder of what we were up against. The betrayal, the lies, none of that mattered right now. What mattered was staying ahead of this guy. As I stuffed a few things into a backpack, I glanced out the window, half expecting to see Kyle's car pull up at any moment. My heart was pounding, my mind flipping between fear and anger. I couldn't believe I was doing this, running away from my own home, from my own life. But what choice did I have? This wasn't just about Jenna anymore. Kyle was a real threat, and now he had a reason to come after both of us. Jenna came back into the room, her face pale. I've packed what I can. We need to go now. I nodded, grabbing my keys. But just as we were about to leave, my phone buzzed. I glanced down at the screen, expecting it to be Maya again. But it wasn't. It was Kyle. My blood ran cold. The message was short, chilling in its simplicity. I know. I showed Jenna the phone. Her face went white. He knows you know, she whispered, fear creeping into her voice. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. We both knew what that meant. Kyle wasn't going to let us just walk away. He was coming. A million thoughts raced through my mind. What now? Run? Fight? I couldn't just let this guy track us down. But I wasn't going to turn into some fugitive either. I had to end this. We had to end this. Jenna looked at me, her voice shaky. Ethan, we need to get out of here. Now. But something snapped in me. I was done running. Done being scared. Done letting this guy control everything. No, I said, more forcefully than I'd intended. I'm not going anywhere. Jenna stared at me, confused. What are you talking about? He's coming for us. We need to leave. I shook my head, my pulse racing, anger boiling to the surface. If we run, we'll be running for the rest of our lives. He'll always be looking for us. And I'm not living like that. I looked her dead in the eyes. This ends tonight. She didn't respond right away, but I could see the panic rising in her. You don't know what Kyle's capable of. You can't just. I'm not scared of him anymore, I interrupted, my voice sharp. He's been holding this over you for God knows how long, but he doesn't get to do that anymore. I grabbed my phone, staring at the message again. Then, without hesitating, I texted him back. Come find me. Jenna gasped. Ethan, what are you doing? I'm ending this, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through my veins. If he's coming for us, let him. But we're not going to be his victims anymore. Jenna looked horrified, but she didn't argue. She knew deep down that I was right. Running wouldn't solve this. Kyle would always find a way to pull us back into his nightmare. The only way to stop him was to face him head-on. The minutes passed like hours as we waited. Every noise, every creak of the house made my heart race. Jenna paced back and forth, biting her nails, while I sat by the window, watching the street, waiting for Kyle's car to appear. And then, headlights. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest. Jenna froze, her eyes wide with fear. The car pulled up slowly, the engine humming ominously. It was him. This was it. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the door. I wasn't a fighter, but I wasn't about to go down without one either. Jenna stood behind me, trembling, as we watched the figure step out of the car. Kyle. He walked up to the door with the same smug confidence he'd had back at the motel. Like he owned the world. Like he owned us. But not tonight. Not anymore. I opened the door before he had a chance to knock, the bat gripped tightly in my hands. He didn't flinch, just smirked at me, his eyes cold and calculating. Big mistake, Ethan, he said, his voice low, dangerous. You should have just stayed out of this. I didn't say anything, didn't give him the satisfaction of a response. My grip on the bat tightened as I stood between him and Jenna. Kyle's smirk faltered slightly when he saw the bat, but he quickly recovered. You think that's gonna stop me? He took a step forward, but I didn't move. My heart was racing, but my mind was clear. This was the moment everything came down to. You're not taking her, I said firmly. And you're not taking me. Kyle's expression darkened. He moved closer, his eyes flicking between me and Jenna. You really think you can stop me? You think you can? Before he could finish, I swung hard. The bat connected with his shoulder, and he staggered back, cursing in pain. Jenna screamed behind me, but I didn't stop. I swung again, this time knocking him to the ground. Kyle groaned, clutching his arm, his cocky demeanor shattered. I stood over him, breathing hard, my whole body trembling with adrenaline. We're done, I said through gritted teeth. You don't come near us again, ever. Kyle glared up at me, his face twisted in pain and rage. You'll regret this, he spat. You think this is over? I leaned down, my voice low and steady. It's over when I say it's over. And with that, I stepped back, letting him stumble to his feet. He shot me one last look, filled with hatred, before limping back to his car. The engine roared to life, and within seconds, he was gone. Jenna stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face, her body shaking. I dropped the bat and turned to her, feeling the weight of everything crash down on me at once. She stepped forward, wrapping her arms around me, sobbing into my chest. For the first time in months, I felt a strange sense of peace. The nightmare wasn't over, but Kyle's grip on us was broken. We weren't running anymore. Whatever happened next, we would face it together. And this time, I wasn't letting go. That night, it all started with a sentence that should have never been said. Dad, I don't have your DNA. Matt said it with this weird mix of curiosity and concern, and it made me sit up right away. I had just walked in the door and hadn't even taken off my jacket when he threw those words into the air, giving me no time to prepare. What do you mean? I asked quietly, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. Matt pulled a sheet of paper from a box I hadn't noticed on the table and set it in front of me. DNA test. We did it at school with the whole class, just for fun. Turns out, I don't have your genetic markers. Those words hit me like a knife. I stared at the paper as if it were written in a foreign language. My brain refused to process it. But along with the hollow feeling inside me, there was this unsettling realization. This wasn't a joke, and it wasn't a mistake. No markers. I just repeated the word, like an echo, without meaning, without understanding. Matt raised his eyebrows, then said something that pulled me out of that abyss for a moment. Mom, did you know? The comfortable evening shattered like glass. I hadn't even seen her, but Matt's words cut through the air as if she had been there all along. Lindsay stepped out of the kitchen, silently, without any rush, her face calm and slightly interested. What are you talking about? Her voice was steady, no trace of panic, even though the question felt wrong. The DNA test. It says I don't have Dad's DNA. How is that possible? Her reaction was strange. She just stood there, looking at Matt, then at me as if we'd started speaking some foreign language. But her eyes, they didn't flinch, not for a second. There was no shock, no surprise. Just a brief moment of thought before she spoke 3 words that hit me square in the chest. So what now? I couldn't believe those words had just come out of her mouth. Matt looked confused. But me? I already knew she was hiding something bigger. This was the moment when reality started to collapse. I sat there, the silence growing thicker with each second. Matt was still looking between us, waiting for an explanation, but my eyes stayed locked on Lindsay. Her calmness was unsettling. It was like she didn't even care about the bomb Matt had just dropped. So what now? She repeated, her tone casual, almost dismissive. I felt something inside me snap. What do you mean? So what now? How the hell can you say that? You heard what he just said, didn't you? He's not my son. She took a sip of her coffee, like we were talking about the weather, and shrugged. It's a DNA test, Tom. What do you want me to do? Cry? Scream? What would that change? The way she said it, like this was some minor inconvenience, sent a wave of anger through me. I stood up from the table, knocking my chair back, my hands shaking. You knew, didn't you? You've known all along. All these years. You've been lying to me. Matt was frozen, staring at both of us like he was witnessing some surreal nightmare. I could barely hear his breathing. But Lindsay, she was unfazed. Lying? She laughed. A cold, bitter sound. Come on, Tom. Don't act like you're some victim here. We've both known for a while that things weren't perfect between us. I took a step toward her, my mind racing, piecing together all the moments that had never made sense before. All the times she had come home late from work, the secretive phone calls, the sudden trips to visit friends. I had let it slide, thinking it was stress, life, anything but this. When? I demanded. When did it start? Who is he? She sighed, finally setting down her cup like this conversation was an annoying interruption. Matt, honey, why don't you go upstairs? This is between your dad and me. No. Matt's voice was louder than I expected. He stood up, pushing his chair back, his face flushed with confusion and anger. I'm not going anywhere. What the hell is going on? Who is my real dad? Lindsay turned to him, her face softening slightly, but there was still no trace of regret. Matt, it's not that simple. It was a long time ago. Things were different. But your dad, Tom, he's still your father in every way that matters. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In every way that matters? You think that makes this okay? You think you can just sweep this under the rug because I raised him? You lie to both of us. She rolled her eyes, as if I was overreacting. Tom, don't be dramatic. People make mistakes. Relationships aren't black and white. I felt the air leave my lungs. She wasn't even sorry. There was no apology, no shame. Just this cold, dismissive attitude like she had moved on from the whole thing years ago, and I was the one clinging to the past. I turned to Matt, my voice softening. Matt, I swear I didn't know. I didn't. But he cut me off, his voice shaking. Who is my dad? Lindsay crossed her arms, clearly growing tired of the whole scene. Does it matter? He's not in the picture. He never was. I stared at her, the room spinning around me. You're unbelievable. All these years, and this is how you act. Like none of it matters? Like we can just move on. She smirked, tilting her head. What did you expect, Tom? Some big confession? Tears? I did what I had to do. You think you're the only one who's had to live with secrets. Couldn't breathe. This wasn't the woman I had married. This wasn't the person I thought I knew. It felt like I was staring into the face of a stranger, someone who had been wearing a mask for years. And now the mask had finally slipped. But I wasn't ready for what she said next. Besides, she added, her voice dripping with cold amusement, Matt's not the only thing I've kept from you. Her words hit me like a freight train. Not the only thing. My whole body tensed as I tried to process what she had just said. I stared at her, trying to find some hint that she was bluffing, some crack in her calm facade. But there was none. Lindsay's eyes were locked on mine, daring me to push further. Not the only thing? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. What else are you hiding? She sighed, the way someone would if they were tired of explaining something obvious. Tom, you're acting like this is some grand conspiracy. Sometimes things happen. Life isn't as clean-cut as you want it to be. I felt the floor slipping away beneath me. This wasn't happening. My wife, no, this woman standing in front of me, was telling me that there were more secrets, bigger lies, and she wasn't even flinching. My heart pounded in my chest, and for a moment, all I could do was stand there, frozen. Matt's voice cut through the silence, sharp and desperate. Mom, what the hell is going on? Just tell us the truth for once. Lindsay gave him a long, slow look. Matt, this doesn't change anything. You're still my son, and Tom, he's still your father in every way that matters. I turned to her, the words pouring out before I could stop them. Stop saying that. Stop acting like this is no big deal. You've been lying to us for years, and now you're saying there's more? What else have you been hiding from me, Lindsay? Her lips curled into the faintest hint of a smile, and that was when I knew she had been waiting for this. She had been waiting for me to dig deeper, to open this door. She took a step toward me, her voice low and deliberate. You really want to know? She asked, almost teasingly. Are you sure, Tom? Because once I tell you, there's no going back. Couldn't breathe. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to stop, to walk away, but I had already come too far. Just say it, I demanded. Tell me everything. Lindsay's eyes flicked toward Matt for a moment, and then back to me. She took a deep breath, like she was about to share a casual piece of gossip. It's not just Matt's father you don't know about. It's your entire marriage, Tom. You think I've been faithful? You think I've just been sitting at home, waiting for you to come back from work every night? No, you've been living in a fantasy. The room seemed to tilt. I felt dizzy, my legs weak. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What are you saying? I'm saying, she continued, her tone dripping with contempt, that there have been others, many others. Matt's father was just the beginning. You never noticed, did you? All those nights I was working late, all those weekend girls' trips. I'm amazed you never put it together. I could feel the bile rising in my throat. Everything. The late nights, the mysterious phone calls, the sudden need for space. It all started falling into place. The lies, the deceit, the betrayal, it had been right in front of me this whole time, and I had been too blind to see it. Matt was silent, his face pale, his hands shaking as he stared at his mother in disbelief. He looked like he was on the verge of tears, but his voice came out firm. Mom, how could you do this? How could you lie to us like this? Lindsay shrugged, as if she couldn't be bothered with the emotions swirling around her. Matt, you'll understand when you're older. Marriage isn't what people think it is. You do what you have to do to keep things together. Besides, it's not like I didn't love you both in my own way. I couldn't listen to another word. My fists clenched as I tried to contain the rage building inside me. You don't get to twist this around. You don't get to act like this is normal, like this is something I should just accept. You tore our family apart, Lindsay. You ruined everything. She took a step back, crossing her arms with a smirk. Oh, please, spare me the speech. You're acting like you're some saint, like you've never had doubts. But deep down, you knew. You just didn't want to face it. You chose ignorance, Tom. That's on you. For a moment, I thought I might explode. But instead, a cold clarity washed over me. I realized I was staring at a woman who had no remorse, no guilt. She had already moved on mentally and emotionally. This wasn't a confession for her, it was a game, and she had won. But I wasn't about to let her have the last word. Who else? I asked, my voice low, barely controlled. Who else, Lindsay? How long has this been going on? She paused for a moment, a glint of amusement in her eyes, as if she was enjoying watching me crumble. You really want a list, Tom? You wouldn't know most of them. Let's just say I've kept myself entertained. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned to Matt, who looked like his whole world had just collapsed. And in that moment, I made a decision. This was the end of something, but it wasn't the end of me. The air felt thick, suffocating, as if every breath was a struggle. Matt stood there, frozen, his face pale, eyes wide with disbelief. I could see the hurt in his expression, the way his mind was spinning, trying to process everything his mother had just said. But there was no way to make sense of it. I knew because I was feeling the same. I turned back to Lindsay, the woman I had once thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. Now all I saw was a stranger, someone who had built walls of lies around me for years. My fists tightened, but I wasn't angry anymore. I was just empty. "You're sick?" I said quietly, the words barely making it past my lips. "This is all just a game to you, isn't it? You think you've won." Lindsay didn't even blink. She stood there with that cold, indifferent smirk, like none of this mattered. "Won? Tom, this isn't a competition. You're acting like this is some big tragedy. But it's life. People cheat. People lie. You either deal with it or you don't." I stared at her, feeling the weight of those words. All these years, deal with it or don't. That's how she had seen our entire marriage? Like it was a business arrangement, something to be tolerated, not cherished. The realization cut deep, deeper than I thought possible. I turned to Matt, my heart breaking for him. He hadn't moved, his hands shaking, lips trembling. This was destroying him. "Matt, look at me," I said softly. He slowly shifted his gaze from Lindsay to me, his eyes filled with questions that had no answers. I tried to find the right words, but how could I? How do you explain to your son that the life he's known has been built on lies? "I didn't know," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I swear to you, I didn't know." He shook his head, his voice finally breaking free, a raw mix of anger and sadness. "How could you not know? How could you not see it?" It was a question I had been asking myself over and over in my head. How hadn't I seen it? Was I too trusting? Too blind? Too naive? Lindsay was right about one thing. I had chosen ignorance, maybe without even realizing it. I had chosen to believe in a picture-perfect life that never existed. But this wasn't about me anymore. It was about Matt, about what this was doing to him. "Matt, listen," I said, stepping closer to him. "None of this changes how much I love you. I'm still your dad, no matter what." He looked at me, tears welling in his eyes. "But you're not my real dad," he spat, his voice filled with venom and confusion. "I don't even know who my real dad is. You've been lying to me too, just by pretending this whole time." His words cut deep, but I knew they were coming from pain, not hatred. Still, they stung. I could feel myself unraveling, torn between the desire to protect him and the overwhelming sense of failure as a father. I opened my mouth to respond, but Lindsay interrupted, her voice dripping with impatience. "Oh, for God's sake, Matt, stop being so dramatic," she snapped, rolling her eyes. "You're acting like this is the end of the world. So what if Tom's not your biological father? He raised you, didn't he? He's still the man who was there for you, who gave you everything. Isn't that enough?" Matt's eyes darkened as he glared at her. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. You're the one who lied. You're the one who ruined everything." Lindsay stepped forward, her face cold, her voice sharp. "Don't you raise your voice at me. You have no idea what it's like to be in my position. You think it's easy being the perfect wife? The perfect mother? Do you think I wanted things to end up like this?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was actually making herself out to be the victim. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to stay calm, for Matt's sake. "Stop it, Lindsay," I said, my voice barely controlled. "You've done enough damage." But she wasn't done. "You're both acting like I'm some kind of monster, but you have no idea what it's been like for me all these years. Do you think I was happy? Do you think I felt loved? I had to look for that somewhere else because you—" She pointed at me, her eyes narrowing. "Were never really there." I felt my jaw tighten. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about her justifying everything she had done. I couldn't listen to her excuses, her attempts to rewrite our entire marriage to suit her twisted narrative. But Matt wasn't having it either. "You're unbelievable," he muttered, his voice shaking. "You think this is all about you? What about us? What about Dad? You're not the only one who's been hurt. For the first time, I saw something flicker in Lindsay's eyes. Guilt? Regret? Maybe. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. She let out a slow breath and took a step back, arms crossed. Fine. You both want to play the victim? Go ahead. Blame me. Hate me. I don't care anymore. Matt looked at me, his eyes pleading for something. Answers, comfort, anything. But I had none of those to give. All I could do was stand there, feeling my world crumble beneath my feet. And in that moment, I realized something. Lindsay was done. She had moved on long before this moment. But Matt and I, we were still here, still picking up the pieces of the life she had shattered. I had to make a choice. There was a suffocating silence in the room, the kind that felt like it could crush you under its weight. Lindsay stood there, arms crossed, watching us with that cold detachment, like she had already walked away from all of this. But Matt, he was still standing in front of me, his face pale, his fists clenched by his sides. The cracks were showing in him now, and I could see it, feel it, like he was barely holding himself together. I took a deep breath, trying to clear my mind, but every thought felt like it was tangled in a web of betrayal, lies, and confusion. Lindsay had dropped one bombshell after another, and it was becoming clear that she didn't care about the aftermath. But I did. I couldn't just let Matt be swept up in this storm without something to hold on to. You don't care, do you? I said, turning to Lindsay, my voice quiet but loaded with years of frustration. You've already decided how this ends for you. You don't give a damn about us, about what happens to Matt. She sighed, like I was exhausting her with all my questions, and then tilted her head, a smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. You're right, Tom. I don't care anymore. I stopped caring a long time ago. This whole marriage was over for me before you even knew there was a problem. I stayed because it was convenient. It worked for a while. But we both knew it wasn't going to last forever. Matt's eyes flashed with anger. Convenient? I was convenient. She turned to him, shrugging. Don't act surprised. People stay in relationships for all sorts of reasons, Matt. You'll figure that out one day. I tried to make it work, but I wasn't going to live in a lie forever. I couldn't stand it anymore. Her indifference, her coldness. It was like she wasn't even human. You've already been living a lie, I snapped, for years, and you dragged us both into it. She raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed by my outburst. You're overreacting, Tom. People have affairs. People make mistakes. Get over it. That was it. Something inside me broke. I didn't yell, didn't lash out. I just felt this overwhelming sense of clarity. I wasn't going to get anything more from her. No apology. No explanation that would ever make sense. Lindsay had already checked out, and she wasn't coming back. I turned to Matt, and for the first time, I saw the tears welling in his eyes, the same confusion and betrayal that had been tearing me apart. But it was different for him. He was 16, just a kid who had been blindsided by a truth no one should have to face at that age. He deserved better than this. Matt, I said softly, stepping closer to him. We're going to figure this out. I know this is a lot, but I'm still here. I'm still your dad. And no matter what she says, I'm not going anywhere. He looked at me, and for a second, I thought he was going to collapse. His shoulders slumped, and he wiped at his eyes, clearly trying to hold it together. How are we supposed to move forward? Everything's just ruined. I placed a hand on his shoulder, trying to give him something, anything to cling to. We'll move forward one step at a time. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but we don't have to let this define us. This doesn't change who you are or who we are. We'll get through this. Lindsay laughed, a short, sarcastic sound that made my blood boil. Oh, spare me the dramatic speeches, Tom. You think you're going to fix this? You think you can just glue everything back together and pretend like nothing happened? I ignored her, keeping my focus on Matt. We don't need to pretend. We just need to keep going. Together. But Matt wasn't done. His voice was shaking, raw with the pain that had been building up inside him. You're just gonna let her walk away? After everything she's done? After all the lies? He wasn't wrong. Every part of me wanted to scream, to make Lindsay pay for what she'd done. But at that moment, standing there with Matt, I realized something important. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making her feel the same pain she had inflicted on us. It was about protecting what was left. Protecting Matt. I turned to Lindsay, my voice calm but firm. You need to leave. Her eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected me to make that decision so quickly. Excuse me? You heard me, I said, my voice steady. You've made it clear that you don't care about us anymore. So leave. Go live your life, do whatever it is you need to do. But you don't get to stay here and keep hurting us. She stared at me for a moment, and then, just like that, the smirk returned. Fine, she said, her voice cool. If that's what you want, I'll pack my things. Matt was watching the whole exchange, his breath shaky, his fists still clenched. I could see the pain in his eyes, but there was also something else. Relief. Maybe this was the moment he realized we didn't have to stay trapped in this nightmare any longer. Lindsay walked past me, her footsteps quiet but heavy with finality. She didn't look back, didn't say a word as she disappeared down the hallway. The door to our bedroom closed with a soft click, leaving me and Matt standing there, surrounded by the silence of everything that had just come crashing down. I turned to him, not knowing what to say, but he spoke first. Do you think we'll be okay? I looked at him, at the boy who had just lost his world, and nodded slowly. Yeah, Matt, we will. It's not going to be easy, but we'll be okay. I promise. For the first time that night, I saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to hold on to, at least for now. The sound of Lindsay packing her things echoed faintly down the hallway. Every zip of a suitcase, every creak of a drawer being pulled open. It felt like a slow-motion countdown, each sound marking the end of something I once believed would last forever. But I was done. Done waiting for an explanation. Done hoping for some kind of redemption from her. Matt and I stood there in the living room, neither of us saying a word. I didn't know what to say, and I don't think he did either. He kept glancing at the hallway, as if he expected her to come back, to say something, anything, that might make sense of what had just happened. But she didn't. The bedroom door stayed closed, and with each minute that passed, the silence between us felt heavier, more final. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I heard the bedroom door open again. Lindsay emerged with her bags, her face calm and indifferent. She looked like someone leaving a weekend trip, not a woman walking out on her family. There were no tears, no second thoughts. She didn't even glance in Matt's direction. Is this really it? Matt asked, his voice breaking the silence. He was standing stiffly, his hands gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles had turned white. You're just going to walk out? Like none of this mattered. Lindsay paused, her hand on the strap of her suitcase. She glanced at him, and for a brief moment I thought maybe there was something human still left in her. But when she spoke, her voice was flat, emotionless. Matt, you'll understand when you're older. People outgrow each other. Things change. It's just how life works. His face flushed with anger. You can't just say that. This isn't normal. You lied to us. To me. My whole life has been a lie. And you're acting like it's no big deal. Lindsay sighed, like she was tired of the conversation, tired of all of us. I didn't lie to you, Matt. You're still my son. I'm still your mother. I just didn't tell you everything. That's not the same thing. I couldn't believe her audacity. The way she twisted the truth, minimizing everything like it was some small misunderstanding. My hand gripped the back of the chair in front of me as I tried to keep myself calm. Matt needed me to keep it together. He was barely holding on as it was. You didn't tell us everything? I said, my voice trembling with barely controlled anger. You destroyed our family, and now you're walking out like it's nothing. You've been lying to both of us for years, Lindsay. Don't act like this is some gray area. She didn't even flinch. You raised Matt. You gave him a good life. What difference does it make where his DNA comes from? He's still yours in every way that counts. Matt's voice cracked. But you didn't give me a choice. You took that from me. You didn't care what I wanted or what Dad deserved. You just did what you wanted. For a second, just a split second, I saw something shift in Lindsay's eyes. Maybe she did feel something. Guilt, regret. But she buried it quickly, masking it behind that same cool, detached look. You'll understand one day, she said softly, turning away from him. You'll see that life isn't as simple as you think it is. Matt didn't say anything else. His shoulders slumped, and he just stood there, staring at her, broken and defeated. I could feel my heart breaking for him. No one should have to go through this, least of all a 16-year-old kid who thought he knew his family, thought he knew where he came from. Lindsay headed for the front door, her suitcase dragging softly behind her. My chest tightened as I realized this was it, the last moment, the final break. She reached for the door handle and paused, looking back at me for a split second. Goodbye, Tom, she said, her voice so casual, so empty. Goodbye, Lindsay, I replied, feeling the weight of those words like a stone in my throat. There was no point in dragging this out. She was gone in every way that mattered. With that, she opened the door, walked through it, and closed it behind her. The soft click of the door latch echoed through the house. And then, nothing. Just silence. Matt collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands, and I felt this wave of helplessness wash over me. I wanted to say something, anything, to take away the pain he was feeling, but there were no words that could fix this. No quick solution. We were standing in the wreckage of our lives, and all I could do was be there with him, as broken as I was. I don't know how to move on from this, he whispered, his voice muffled. I don't know who I am anymore. His words hit me hard because, honestly, I wasn't sure how to move on either. Everything I thought I knew about my life had been ripped apart in the span of a single night. I sat down across from him, reaching out to place a hand on his shoulder. You're still Matt, I said quietly. You're still my son. That hasn't changed. He looked up at me, his eyes red and filled with confusion. But everything else has. Everything's different now. I nodded slowly because he was right. Things would never be the same again. But I knew somehow we had to keep going. We had to rebuild even if we didn't know how. We'll figure it out, I said, trying to sound more certain than I felt. One day at a time. I'm not going anywhere. We'll get through this together. Matt didn't respond right away. He just nodded, wiping his eyes with the sleeve of his shirt. The silence between us was heavy, but it was the kind of silence that came from understanding, not avoidance. We both knew the road ahead would be rough, but at least we weren't walking it alone. The sound of Lindsay's car starting up outside brought a strange sense of closure. She was really gone, and now it was just the two of us. The family she had broken might never be the same, but we were still here. For the first time that night, I felt a glimmer of something, hope. Maybe. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to start rebuilding. Come on, Matt, I said, standing up. Let's go. We've got a lot to figure out. The house felt emptier than ever after Lindsay left. Every sound seemed amplified. The ticking of the clock, the creak of the floorboards as I walked, even the faint hum of the refrigerator. It was like the absence of her created a vacuum, sucking all the life out of the place. But I knew it wasn't just her leaving. It was everything she had taken with her. The trust, the memories, the illusion of who we thought she was. Matt sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the space in front of him. He hadn't said much since Lindsay had walked out. Couldn't blame him. Hell, I didn't even know what to say. What could you possibly say to fix something like this? I poured 2 glasses of water, trying to do something, anything, to break the tension that hung over us like a storm cloud. I set one in front of him and sat down, watching as he absent-mindedly picked up the glass but didn't drink. We'll figure this out, I said softly, more for myself than him. It felt like the 100th time I'd said it, but I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince anymore, Matt or me. It's going to take time, but we'll get through this. He nodded, but his eyes were distant, lost in a world of questions that I couldn't answer. How? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. How do we get through something like this? I don't even know where to start. His question hung in the air between us, heavy with the weight of the truth we were both avoiding. The reality was, there wasn't a clear path forward. There wasn't a manual for how to handle your entire life unraveling in one night. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my hands over my face. I don't know, Matt. I really don't. But what I do know is that we have each other. And no matter what happens, that's not going to change. He glanced at me, his eyes searching mine for something. Maybe reassurance, maybe hope. It's just everything I thought I knew, Everything I believed about us, about her. It's all gone. How do I trust anything now? His words hit me hard because they echoed exactly how I felt. Lindsay's betrayal had reached deep, poisoning not just our present, but our entire past. Every moment, every memory, felt tainted now, like I had been living in someone else's lie. I get it, I said, my voice hoarse. I'm right there with you, but we can't let this define us. We can't let her take more from us than she already has. You and me, we've still got each other, and that's real. He didn't say anything, but I could see a flicker of something in his eyes. A small glimmer of connection. Maybe it was anger, maybe it was pain, but at least it was something. I stood up, trying to shake off the overwhelming weight of the situation. Come on, let's get out of here for a bit. Matt looked up at me, confused. Where? I don't know. Anywhere. Let's just drive. I grabbed my keys from the counter, feeling the need to escape the suffocating walls of the house that had suddenly become too small, too full of memories I didn't want to face. He hesitated for a moment, then slowly got up and followed me out the door. The cool night air hit us as we stepped outside, and for the first time all evening, I felt like I could breathe again. We climbed into the car, and I started the engine, pulling out of the driveway without any particular destination in mind. The road stretched out in front of us, dark and quiet. Matt stared out the window, lost in his thoughts, and I kept my eyes on the road, my hands gripping the wheel tightly. I didn't know where we were going, but I knew we needed to move, just to feel like we weren't stuck in the mess Lindsay had left behind. After a few minutes of silence, Matt spoke. Do you think she ever loved us? The question hit me like a punch in the gut. I didn't want to answer, didn't want to admit that I had been asking myself the same thing. How could someone who claimed to love us tear everything apart so easily, so carelessly? I don't know, I said finally, my voice thick. Maybe she did, or maybe she convinced herself she did. But whatever love she had for us, it wasn't enough. Matt nodded, staring out into the darkness. I just don't get it. How could she live with herself knowing what she was doing? How could she lie for so long and not feel anything? I didn't have an answer for that. Some people were just wired differently. Some people could live with their lies, burying them so deep that they convinced themselves it wasn't even a lie anymore. She made her choices, I said, my voice steadier now, and she's going to have to live with them. But we don't have to live with her choices. We get to decide what happens next. Matt shifted in his seat, turning to look at me. And what do we do next? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the question settle on me. The truth was, I didn't know. There was no clear path forward, no easy solution to fix the damage Lindsay had done. But for the first time, I realized that the path didn't have to be clear. We just had to take it one step at a time. We start over, I said. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to hurt for a while. But we don't have to let this destroy us. We can rebuild. You and me. Matt was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. Yeah, I guess we can. The road ahead stretched into the distance, and as we drove, the weight of the evening started to lift, just a little. We weren't fixed, not by a long shot, but we were moving. And maybe that was enough for now. Maybe that was all we could ask for. As the car rolled on through the quiet night, I glanced over at Matt, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. It was faint, but it was there. And for now, that was enough. The drive stretched on, the road ahead endless but somehow calming. We didn't say much after that, and it was okay. There was a strange comfort in the silence, like the space between us was filled with an understanding that didn't need words. Matt kept his eyes on the passing lights, lost in his thoughts, while I focused on the rhythm of the road, letting it pull me away from everything that had just crumbled around us. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of a diner on the edge of town. The neon sign buzzed quietly in the night, casting a soft glow over the empty lot. It was the kind of place where you went to think, where nothing much happened, and that was exactly what we needed right now. Hungry? I asked, glancing over at Matt. He shrugged. Not really, but I guess we could grab something. We stepped out of the car and headed inside. The place was mostly empty, just a couple of truckers nursing cups of coffee and a tired waitress behind the counter. It felt safe, disconnected from everything that had just exploded in our lives. We slid into a booth by the window, and the waitress came over, dropping off menus with a polite smile. "What can I get you boys?" I ordered coffee and Matt asked for a soda, though I could tell he wasn't really in the mood for anything. She nodded, disappearing into the kitchen, leaving us with the quiet murmur of the diner and the distant hum of the freeway. Matt stared down at his hands for a long time before finally breaking the silence. "I don't know who I am anymore," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Those words felt like a knife in my chest, but I didn't let it show. I knew this wasn't just about Lindsay's betrayal. It was about everything that had been ripped away from him. His identity, the foundation of who he thought he was. And the worst part was, I didn't have the answer he needed. I leaned forward, choosing my words carefully. "You're still the same person, Matt. Nothing about who you are changes because of what she did. You're still you. You're still my son." He shook his head, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "But everything's different now. Everything she told me was a lie. I don't even know who my real dad is. What if I don't want to know? What if I can't handle the truth?" I didn't push him. I knew he was spiraling, caught between wanting answers and fearing what those answers might mean. It was a lot for anyone to handle, let alone a kid his age. But I needed him to understand that the truth didn't change the most important thing. "Look," I said, my voice firm but gentle. "I don't care who your biological father is. That doesn't matter to me, and it doesn't have to matter to you. I'm the one who raised you. I'm the one who's been here every day, and that's not going to change. Ever." Matt's eyes glistened with tears, and for a moment, I thought he was going to break down. But instead, he looked out the window, his jaw tight, trying to hold it all together. I feel like I've been living someone else's life. Like nothing's real anymore." I nodded slowly, understanding exactly what he meant. "I know. I feel that way too. But you're not alone in this. We'll figure it out together, one step at a time." He didn't respond right away, but I could see the wheels turning in his mind, the way he was processing everything. This wasn't something we could fix in one night. There would be days, maybe even months, where he'd struggle with the weight of it all. But he didn't have to do it alone. The waitress returned with our drinks, setting them down without a word. We sipped quietly, the warm comfort of the diner wrapping around us like a blanket. For a few minutes, it almost felt normal, like we were just two people taking a break from the world. After a long pause, Matt spoke again, this time his voice steadier. "What happens next?" I took a deep breath, thinking about the road ahead. There was no clear answer, no perfect plan. But I knew one thing for sure. "We move forward," I said. "It's going to hurt, and it's going to take time, but we don't have to stay stuck in this. We rebuild. You and me." He looked at me, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. It wasn't much, but it was something. "Yeah," he said quietly, nodding. "We rebuild." We sat there for a while longer, not rushing, just letting the quiet of the diner settle around us. The world outside felt distant, like it couldn't reach us in that little booth. For now, it was just the two of us, figuring out how to take the first step. When we finally got up to leave, Matt looked different. Still wounded, still confused, but with a bit of strength he hadn't had before. We got back in the car and drove home, the silence between us now comfortable, not heavy. As we pulled into the driveway, I realized that, despite everything that had happened, there was one undeniable truth. We were still here. We had been knocked down, shattered by Lindsay's betrayal, but we weren't broken beyond repair. I looked over at Matt, and he met my eyes. There was a quiet resolve in him now, a determination to keep going, even if he didn't have all the answers yet. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I knew we were going to be okay. "Let's go inside," I said, turning off the engine. "Tomorrow's a new day." Matt nodded, and together we walked into the house. The same house where everything had fallen apart, but now, somehow it felt like the place where we'd begin to rebuild. It hit me suddenly, like a punch to the face, one you can't easily recover from. I never thought that my conversation with Rachel that evening would lead to this. She was sitting in the kitchen, drinking tea, and almost casually said, "I'll pick Timmy up from school tomorrow. We need to figure something out." Timmy, our son, our 7-year-old boy, who had never raised any suspicion in me. Everything seemed normal. He went to school that morning as usual. I didn't think much of her words at first, but something in her tone made me stop and turn back to her. What do we need to figure out? I tried to sound calm, though I felt an odd chill run down my spine. Rachel turned away, her eyes fixating on the cup in her hands, as if she didn't want to meet my gaze. And that was suspicious. In the past, whenever it came to Timmy, we always made decisions together. But now, she spoke as if something had already been decided. Without me, just some things. She replied with a strange indifference. He's still young, but, it's time to change the situation. I frowned. Change? What kind of talk is this? I don't remember us discussing anything important about Timmy recently. What exactly needs to change? I tried to stay calm, but suspicion began to coil inside me like a ball of poisonous snakes. Rachel sighed and smiled faintly, but not the smile I knew. This was a new, almost cold smile, and that made her seem even more distant. I don't think you need to worry about it, Ryan. Just trust me. I know what's best for Timmy. He wants this, but he can't tell you. It's all for him. What do you mean? My heart started to race. Timmy wants this. What is she talking about? And before I could ask another question, she stood up from the table and left the kitchen, leaving me standing there, confused and lost in dark forebodings. What is she planning to do with our son? And why is she so sure that he shouldn't tell me about it? Couldn't sleep that night. Her words kept circling in my head. What is she planning? And why does it seem like I have no right to know? The next day, when she mentioned picking Timmy up from school again, I realized one thing. I had to find out. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The next morning, Rachel acted as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Her calmness was almost frightening. She got Timmy ready for school. As usual, kissed him on the cheek, and waved as he jumped on the bus. But I couldn't just stand by anymore. Something deep inside me screamed that I had to act. That if I didn't intervene today, it would be too late. After the bus disappeared around the corner, Rachel walked up to me and said, "Don't worry, I'll pick him up. You can relax today." It should have sounded innocent, but her words felt like a command, not a suggestion, as if she had already made decisions for both of us. I couldn't shake her comment from the night before about how he wants this. What does he want? And why wasn't she explaining anything? I decided to take the day off. There were no urgent matters at work, and my nerves were screaming at me to uncover the truth. I didn't tell Rachel about my decision, just kissed her goodbye and left the house, pretending to head to work as usual. But instead of driving to the office, I parked on a nearby street and started watching the house. The day dragged on like an eternity. Rachel went about her business, calm as ever, no suspicious calls or sudden trips. But I knew the real event would start after lunch when she was supposed to pick Timmy up from school. Several times I caught myself about to give up, thinking I had imagined it all, that my anxious mind was looking for problems where there were none. But then I remembered her smile from the night before. That cold, unreadable smile I had never seen on her face before, and I couldn't bring myself to stop. At 3 o'clock, she left the house and got into the car. I watched her calmly start the engine, check her phone, and drive off. I followed her from a safe distance, my heart pounding so hard it seemed like it could be heard inside the car. The first destination was the schoolyard. Timmy was already waiting by the gate. He ran up to her and hugged her, and I couldn't help but smile. Whatever was going on, he was still the most important thing to her. But that smile faded quickly when, instead of heading home as usual, she turned onto the highway, taking a route we never used. I continued following them, not fully understanding what I was doing. I only knew one thing. I had to find out where she was taking him and what she planned to do. They drove for almost 20 minutes before turning onto a small, unmarked street. There was nothing there, just an old building with peeling walls and a small parking lot out front. My heart clenched when I saw them both get out of the car and head toward the door. I parked a bit further away and followed them on foot, trying to stay unnoticed. It seemed no one had seen me. When they entered the building, I rushed to the window and looked inside, and what I saw made me freeze in horror. They were talking to a man. A doctor? Was this a clinic? The man gestured, showing them some papers, and Rachel nodded, calm and confident as always. Timmy stood next to her, but in his eyes, I saw something that made me stop in my tracks. He was terrified. His lips trembled, and he clung to his mother's hand, not with joy as he usually did, but with a kind of uncertainty, barely concealed fear. What were they planning to do to my son? I stood by that window, mesmerized. 1,000 questions raced through my mind, but I had no answers. Who was this man and why were they here? What was this place? And why had Rachel decided to hide it from me? My fingers trembled as I watched this doctor continue to explain something on the papers Rachel was carefully studying. But Timmy looked so small, almost lost in that office. His eyes darted around, as if he was searching for someone to tell him everything was okay. Then he looked at his mother and whispered something. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw his lips move. Rachel turned sharply to him, gripped his shoulder, and, leaning down, whispered something back. Timmy's face immediately tightened, as if he realized he had no choice. Rage surged through me. Something about her behavior, the way she held his hand with such authority, as if forcing him into something against his will, was driving me mad. I was about to barge in when suddenly the door to the office opened, and they walked out. Quickly, too quickly, as if they were afraid of being delayed. I stepped back behind the corner of the building, trying not to be seen. They passed by me, and I caught a snippet of their conversation. "I'm sure this is the right step, Timmy," Rachel said in a low, soothing tone, one I'd never heard from her before. There was ironclad certainty in her voice. "Soon you'll understand it's for the best. I know you're young, but we have to do this now." Timmy didn't respond. He only sniffled quietly, as if holding back tears. I couldn't wait any longer. My lungs burned with tension, and I felt like I was going to explode. I quickly pulled out my phone and started recording everything. I needed proof. Proof that something terrible was happening. Something I didn't fully understand yet, but I instinctively felt was dangerous. They got into the car and drove off. I ran to my own car, started the engine, and followed them again. The same questions swirled endlessly in my mind. What was Rachel hiding? What step was she planning for Timmy? And why was he so scared? This time, they didn't go home. They headed toward the outskirts of the city, to a place Rachel and I had never been before. I kept a safe distance, making sure not to be seen, but my hands were shaking on the wheel so badly I could barely keep it straight. They pulled up to another building. It was a small clinic, wedged between two old office buildings. No signs, no markings. Rachel took Timmy by the hand and led him inside without looking back. I got out of the car and quickly followed them. At the last moment, I slipped through the door, ignoring my fear of being caught, and headed toward the reception desk. I had made up my mind. I couldn't stand by any longer. Something was very wrong, and it had to do with our son. "Excuse me, I'm looking for my wife and son. They just came in?" I said to the receptionist, trying to keep my voice calm, though inside I was in turmoil. The woman looked up at me over her glasses. Her gaze was cold and indifferent. "Name?" she asked. "Rachel?" I paused, hesitating, unsure if I should mention Timmy. "And Timmy, my son." She muttered something and began typing into the computer. "They're already inside," she said, lifting her eyes to meet mine. "You'll have to wait here." Those words hit me like a brick to the head. Already inside. What are they doing in there? I glanced at the door leading to the inner part of the clinic. Timmy was in there with Rachel, with those people, and I didn't even know what they were planning to do to him. I sat in the small, cramped hallway of the clinic, waiting while the receptionist continued to drill me with her cold stare. Timmy and Rachel were behind the closed doors, and there was nothing I could do. My skin burned, and my fingers clenched into fists instinctively. I wanted to burst into that room, grab my son out of the hands of this woman and that damn doctor they were speaking to earlier. But something held me back. I still didn't fully understand what was happening, and if I acted too hastily, it might make everything even worse. Calm down. Get the facts first. Those thoughts pounded through my head like a mantra as I waited, feeling my heart hammer in my throat. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I checked my watch, unable to believe how slowly time was dragging. Suddenly, the door opened, and Rachel came out alone. She didn't even look surprised to see me. No, she smiled, and it wasn't the Rachel I knew. "What are you doing here, Ryan?" Her voice was calm, almost soft, as if she had expected me, like it was a scheduled meeting, as if nothing unusual had happened. "What am I doing here?" I barely kept myself from exploding. "What are you doing here? And where's Timmy?" "Timmy's fine." She waved off the question like it was an inconvenience. "He's with the doctor. We'll be leaving soon." I completely lost my composure. Doctor? What doctor, Rachel? My voice rose, and there was no stopping me now. What are you planning to do with our son? And why am I finding out about this like some outsider? For a moment, she went quiet, shook her head slightly, then sighed as if tired of explaining something obvious. Timmy needs change, she began, crossing her arms. This is for his own good. You don't understand it, but he's been suffering. And I know it's hard for you to accept, but believe me, everything I'm doing is to make him better. Suffering? I was stunned by her coldness. Timmy doesn't look like a child who's suffering. He's living a normal life. And you're telling me you decided something for him without me? Something shifted in her eyes. That fake calm she had been holding on to broke for just a second. But it wasn't replaced by regret or doubt. No, it was anger and glee. Ryan, you never noticed how he really feels. She shot back coldly. You were always too busy with your own life, your perfect vision of how things should be. But reality isn't that simple. Timmy has changed. And now he needs something more than just our care. Something more? What are you talking about? I felt myself losing control. All of this was incomprehensible nonsense. And I was on the verge of pushing past her into that room. She stopped me with a hand. Don't do this. You'll only make things worse. If you go in there now, you'll destroy everything we've started. Timmy is ready for this. And believe me, he'll thank us both later. My hands shook with barely restrained fury. Thank us for what? I hissed. What are you trying to do? Rachel lowered her eyes to the floor, but a faint smile crept onto her face. And that's when I realized this was no longer my wife. The woman standing in front of me was someone entirely different. She no longer cared what I thought, how I felt. She had made her decision long ago, and Timmy was part of that decision. You know, she said, looking back at me. Sometimes to fix something you have to take a decisive step. Not everyone can do it, but I could. I couldn't take it any longer. I'm not letting you do anything until I know what this decision is. I shouted, storming toward the door where Timmy was. She grabbed my arm, but I shook her off. My only thought was of my son. I burst into the room, and the first thing I saw was Timmy. He was sitting on a chair, his small body hunched over, his face pale. The doctor stood beside him, holding some kind of document, already bringing a pen toward Timmy's hand, as if getting him to sign something. What are you doing? I yelled, rushing toward them. The doctor looked up, startled by my sudden appearance. You're not supposed to be here, he said, quickly hiding the document behind his back. I'm his father, I growled, pushing toward Timmy. And I want to know what you're trying to do with my son. Timmy looked up at me, and in his eyes, I saw something that chilled me to the core. Fear. Unimaginable, terrifying fear that I had never seen in him before. And then I realized that whatever they were planning was far worse than I could have ever imagined. Timmy grabbed my hand the moment I reached him. He was trembling, his small fingers gripping mine with a desperate strength.
If you're as shocked as I was and want to follow this journey, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for what happens next.
He didn't say a word, but he didn't need to. His eyes told me everything I had feared. He was terrified to his core. My anger now was beyond control. I shot a glare at the doctor, who was trying to hide the documents behind his back, and then at Rachel, standing in the doorway, calm and assured in her actions. What are you doing here? I barked at the doctor. What were you trying to get my son to sign? The doctor looked confused, but not particularly frightened. He sighed, as if bored by the scene, and glanced at Rachel, waiting for her permission to speak. That infuriated me even more. This man was acting under her authority. My wife, the mother of my child, stood there like a director, watching her script unfold. Tell him, Rachel, the doctor said coolly, standing up straight. Explain the plan. I turned to her, feeling like my entire world was crumbling in slow motion. Plan, I croaked, my voice shaking as I tried to process. You were going to do something to Timmy and didn't tell me? What kind of sick decision did you make for our son? Rachel sighed, as if this were an ordinary conversation. She walked closer, but I instinctively stepped back, shielding Timmy behind me. Her gaze turned cold and empty, a look I had never seen in all our years together. Ryan, listen, she began with the same infuriatingly calm tone. I'm doing this for his own good, for our good. Timmy has been suffering, and he needs help that you can't give. Suffering. I stared at her in disbelief. What do you mean? He's perfectly healthy. What are you doing to him? You don't understand, she continued, with a faint smile creeping onto her face. It's hard to explain, but I know this is the right thing. We've consulted with specialists. This is the best option for him, and he wants this. He's just too scared to tell you. My heart clenched as if it was being crushed by iron chains. What does Timmy want, Rachel? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady, but the fury was bubbling just below the surface. What have you been putting into his head? Rachel sighed again, and her indifferent expression was driving me to madness. It's not what you think, Ryan, she said. He's always been different. You just didn't see it. He needs a change, and that change has already been planned. He needs a fresh start, and it begins today. This process will help him become who he's meant to be, not the person you see him as. A change? What change, Rachel? I was shouting now, unable to control myself. You're speaking in riddles. But all I see is you dragging our son into something terrible. What kind of hospital is this? What are you going to do to him? A gender transition, Ryan, she said coldly. Her words hit me like a branding iron. I froze. It was as if someone had ripped me out of my own body, leaving me to watch everything from the outside. My heart skipped a beat, then began to pound wildly in my chest. What? I whispered, barely able to comprehend. You want to change our son's gender? Without telling me? She nodded, as if it were the most mundane thing in the world. Yes, and he wants this. He just couldn't bring himself to tell you. Timmy has always felt he was born in the wrong body. I'm helping him start a new life, where he can finally be happy. I looked down at Timmy, who was still clinging to my hand, his eyes filled with tears. He didn't look happy. He looked terrified. Timmy? I whispered, bending down to his level. Is this what you want? He didn't speak. He just looked at me with wide, pleading eyes. He shook his head, barely perceptibly, but it was enough. My anger surged back with renewed force. He doesn't want this, Rachel, I shouted, turning to her. This isn't his choice. You're forcing him. Rachel shot me a calm, but now icy, look, you just don't understand. It's you who can't accept the truth, Ryan. He's been suffering for a long time. You've just been blind. I scooped Timmy into my arms, lifting him off the chair, ignoring the doctor's protests as I headed for the door. I'm taking him out of here, I said through clenched teeth. And you won't come near him until I figure out what else you've been planning. She stood still in the middle of the room, not moving. Her eyes were frozen, emotionless. You're making a mistake, Ryan, she whispered. He'll come back to me, and then you'll understand. I walked out of the room, holding Timmy close, her words echoing in my head like the warning of something terrible that had already been set in motion and couldn't be stopped. I raced down the road, trying to contain the rising panic, but inside, everything was boiling. What did I even know about what was happening? Who was this woman I had lived with for so many years? And what was she capable of doing to push her insane idea forward? The entire time we drove away, with Timmy by my side, I couldn't shake the feeling that Rachel wasn't acting alone. This couldn't just be her decision. She wasn't bold or decisive enough to orchestrate all this without someone backing her. But who was behind her? My phone vibrated on the seat next to me. It was her again. At first, I thought it might be best not to answer, but something pushed me to pick up. I wanted to hear her excuses, her next move in this twisted game. You can't run from this forever, Ryan, she began, as if we were talking about something completely mundane. Her voice was steady, even slightly annoyed, as if this whole situation was just an inconvenience. This is going to happen sooner or later. I clenched my teeth, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. What do you mean? I tried to keep my voice under control, but inside, the rage was bubbling. What's going to happen? What are you trying to do to our son? He told me himself. He doesn't want this. I heard a short laugh on the other end, cold and devoid of warmth. He's just a child, Ryan, she said, as if explaining something obvious that only a fool wouldn't understand. He can't make these kinds of decisions on his own. But there are people who know what's best for him better than you do. My heart skipped a beat. People who know better than me? People? I struggled not to explode. Who are you talking about, Rachel? Who knows what's better for Timmy than I do? She paused, and then I heard someone laugh beside her. A man's voice, calm, almost mocking. Ryan, maybe it's time you admit you're stuck in the past, the man said. His voice was low, confident, and I immediately knew this wasn't just a friend from work. This was the same man she had been whispering with in the kitchen, the one who had triggered these meetings. Now it all made sense. This bastard wasn't just her lover. He was part of her plan. Who the hell are you? I barked into the phone, feeling the blood rush to my face. Why do you think you get to tell me what to do with my son? His laugh felt like an electric shock running through me. I'm the one helping your wife fix your mistakes, he replied calmly, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. You just don't see what we see. Timmy needs help to become who he's meant to be, not who you want him to be. I was shocked at how casually he spoke about my son. It was as if he believed he knew better than I did, as if he had already decided that it was his right to determine Timmy's future. Rachel, I began again, trying to speak through the anger. You're letting this bastard make decisions for you? For our family? She didn't respond immediately, and that silence was even scarier than any response she could have given. He's right, Ryan, she said quietly. You never listened to me. You never listened to Timmy. You just thought you knew better. But our son is suffering. And if we don't do this now, he'll suffer for the rest of his life. I can't let that happen. He's not suffering. I couldn't hold back my shout. You're the one breaking him, putting these thoughts into his head. You're the one making him afraid. Timmy doesn't want this. You can see that. Timmy can't say it because he's afraid of you. The man's voice cut in coldly. But in time, he'll understand that we were right. And you know what? You'll thank us. Thank you. I nearly choked on the words, outraged. You have no right to decide what's best for my son. We have every right, he replied with that same arrogant confidence. Because I'm helping him be himself. You're just protecting your own fears and ego. I couldn't take it anymore. I hung up the phone before he could say another word. My breathing was heavy. I was seething with rage, but Timmy was next to me, and he didn't deserve to see me like this. The man on the phone, Rachel's lover, he was part of this madness. He was the one who had pushed her into this idea, the one pulling the strings. And worst of all, she was listening to him. She had handed over control of our son to this stranger. I felt panic start to rise inside me. What do I do next? I couldn't just keep running like Jim had said. But now it was clear. This wasn't just between me and Rachel anymore. She had support. She had someone fueling her insane plans and giving them legitimacy. Timmy shifted in the back seat, and I remembered why I had started this fight in the first place. I turned back to him. Timmy? I called softly, turning to look at him. It's going to be okay, son. We're going to get through this. I promise. He opened his eyes, a little sleepy and confused. Dad, are we going home? He asked quietly. I sighed, feeling a stab of pain hearing those words. I couldn't tell him the truth. That home no longer existed. We're going to Aunt Laura's, I said, forcing a smile. It's safe there. I started the car and drove on. But this time, instead of fear, I felt something else. Something darker boiling deep inside. An unrelenting desire to protect my son at all costs. Now I knew who I was up against, and I wasn't going to let them control our lives anymore. This game wasn't over yet. We drove in silence. The road to my sister Laura's house seemed endless. My mind kept circling around that conversation. Rachel's lover, that bastard wasn't just stealing her from me. He thought he could decide my son's fate. Who the hell did he think he was? I barely held myself together, resisting the urge to explode right then and there. How far had they gone with this? And most importantly, how long had it been going on? Timmy sat quietly, unnaturally so for him. His usual spark, that joy that always burst through even in the smallest moments, was gone. It broke my heart. He was so young, already trapped in a nightmare between adults who thought they could decide his life for him. I couldn't let Rachel and that lover of hers break him completely. The phone buzzed again. It was a message from Jim, our lawyer. Urgent. You have until tomorrow to file a countersuit. They're already preparing documents with child services. Find a safe place for Timmy and do it fast. We'll talk in the morning. Don't do anything impulsive. Nothing impulsive. Easier said than done. How could I stay calm when my family was being ripped apart in front of my eyes? I knew Jim was right. I had to act smart, not emotional. But the certainty in that man's voice, the cold tone of Rachel's lover, their words about knowing better than me, about me being clueless, it gnawed at me from the inside. I couldn't shake the suspicion that Rachel had planned this with him all along. He had a vested interest in breaking me. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Her lover had been part of this plan for a while. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just Rachel's decision. It was theirs. We pulled up to Laura's house. She and Tom were waiting on the porch. Her face was filled with concern, but I knew she'd do whatever it took to help. Laura had always been the one who stood by me, even when everything was falling apart. She approached as soon as I stopped the car. "Ryan, you have to explain what's going on," she said, her voice full of determination as I got Timmy out of the car. "I don't understand anything from what you told me. Gender transition? Is this some kind of horrible joke?" Tom stood next to her, looking just as worried. "It's no joke, Laura," I said quietly, looking her in the eyes. "Rachel, she's lost it. She doesn't just want to make decisions for Timmy. She's listening to her new boyfriend, and the two of them have decided that he's supposedly suffering because of who he is. She's planned to change his life completely, and she won't listen to him or me." Laura shook her head, disbelief written all over her face. "This is horrifying," she whispered. "How could she do that? How could she be so cruel to her own son?" "That's why I'm here," I said, gripping Timmy's hand tightly. "We need a safe place. I don't know what to do next. Jim is preparing a countersuit, but Rachel has already filed for custody. She wants to paint me as a kidnapper, and if I make one wrong move, she could take Timmy away for good." "Well, come on, get inside." Tom finally spoke up, opening the door to the house. "You're safe here, but what's your plan?" We all went inside, and I finally felt a small bit of tension ease off my shoulders. Laura led Timmy to the kitchen, offering him something to eat, while I stayed with Tom in the living room. "I don't know, Tom," I admitted as we sat down. "I really don't know, but I've learned more now. She has a lover and he's involved in all of this. He's the one pushing her to make this decision. He also thinks it's the right thing for Timmy." Tom was silent for a few seconds, then shook his head. "I'm sorry, man, but this is crazy. I can't believe she even went along with it. Are you sure this lover isn't just, well, manipulating her? Maybe she doesn't see what he's really doing." I sighed, remembering her cold voice, those confident words she spoke at the clinic. "She's not the same, Laura," I said finally, "and neither is he. He seems to genuinely believe he's in the right. They're living in some parallel reality where they know better, and that scares me the most." Tom sat quietly, staring at the floor in thought. "You need to figure out how far she's willing to go," he finally said. "If she's already brought someone else into this, and they're acting together, this might only be the beginning, and you need to be prepared for what's coming." I nodded slowly. "I know, Tom. I know." That night I couldn't sleep. Laura and Tom helped put Timmy to bed, and he seemed to finally relax a little. But I knew this was the calm before the storm. Rachel and her lover wouldn't stop, and the worst part was, I had no idea what they were planning next. Sometime after midnight, when everything had quieted down and the house was wrapped in silence, I heard my phone vibrate again on the nightstand. I thought it was Rachel again, but when I looked at the screen, it was an unknown number. My heart began to race, the feeling of dread returning. I pressed answer and held the phone to my ear. "Hello," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though inside, everything was on edge. There was silence on the other end. I could only hear faint breathing, and then the same man's voice, the one from before. "You can't run from us, Ryan." His voice, low and mocking, burned in my ears. Felt like everything inside me froze. Even the air seemed thick and cold. I sat in the dark room, staring at the phone, as if it were a weapon in someone's twisted game, where I was just a pawn. "What do you want?" I hissed into the phone. My body was tense, every muscle screaming for answers, for some hint of what he was planning. "Don't pretend you don't understand," he replied, still calm, as if we were discussing trivial matters. "We both know you've already lost. Timmy will end up where he belongs sooner or later." His voice dripped with certainty, as though he already saw himself as the victor, as if it was just a matter of time. My hands started to tremble with anger, but I forced myself to stay calm. He wanted me to lose control. This bastard was playing on my emotions. "You're insane if you think I'm going to let Timmy go to you and Rachel," I said. "He told me himself he doesn't want this. You've broken him, but I won't let you break him completely. Do you hear me?" The man only chuckled, a short, cruel laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made me feel small, like my words meant nothing. "You're so predictable, Ryan, always thinking you're in control of the situation. But the reality is, control slipped from your hands a long time ago. Timmy isn't yours anymore. He belongs to his destiny, and Rachel and I will help him follow that path. You'll see it for yourself, whether you want to or not. You're a sick bastard," I spat, gripping the phone so hard I thought it might crack in my hand. "That's my son. You don't know him, and you have no right to decide what happens to him." "I have more rights than you think," he said sharply, and I noticed a shift in his tone. "Rachel gave me those rights, and there's nothing you can do to change that, because now the law is on our side." I heard a soft click, and the line went dead. I was left sitting there in the dark, trying to process his last words. The law is on our side. What did he mean? What had they already done? I knew they had filed papers with child services, but what else? I shot out of bed and paced around the room, trying to calm down, but his words kept echoing in my head. Timmy belongs to his destiny. It sounded like they saw him as some object, something they could reshape to fit their narrative, as if his own thoughts didn't matter. And Rachel, the woman who once cared so deeply for her son, had now entrusted that responsibility to her new man, this psychopath. I rushed to the phone and dialed Jim's number. It was late, and I knew he might be asleep, but there was no time for pleasantries. The line rang a few times before Jim answered, his voice groggy. "Ryan, what's going on?" he asked, and I could hear the sigh in his voice, realizing this call could only bring bad news. "Jim, that bastard just called me," I blurted, trying to stay focused. "Rachel's lover. He said the law is on their side, that they've already done something. You told me I had until tomorrow to file the countersuit. What's happening? What can they do that I don't know about?" Jim was silent for a few seconds, and I heard him getting out of bed. He sounded genuinely surprised. "You're sure he said the law is on their side?" he asked, and I could hear a hint of worry in his voice. "Yes," I confirmed. He spoke like it was already decided, like they've already won. "All right," Jim said, speaking quickly and firmly. "That's worse than I thought. They could have filed for temporary custody, using testimony from that doctor, or even manufactured other evidence. In that case, the judge could issue a temporary order giving them more control until a full hearing. If they get that before you file the countersuit, it'll be much harder for you to fight back. They might even try to take Timmy by force with court orders." "Take Timmy by force?" My heart skipped a beat in terror. "Jim, I can't let that happen. I can't let them take my son." "Ryan, listen to me carefully," Jim said, raising his voice to steady me. "You need to act quickly, but smartly. We have to stay one step ahead of them. I'm already preparing the documents for the countersuit. But you must stay with Timmy and do nothing that they can use against you. Don't give them any reason to accuse you of running away or breaking the law." I clenched my fists, trying to keep my rage in check. Jim was right, as always. I couldn't afford a single mistake. But that meant waiting while he took control of the situation. "All right," I finally said, sighing. "I'll keep him safe. But if they try anything..." "Ryan, we're going to win this," Jim assured me. "But you need to trust me. Right now, the most important thing is keeping Timmy away from them. I'll take care of the rest. Just be ready to act quickly." "Thanks, Jim," I said and hung up. Now, my only job was to keep Timmy away from Rachel and her new partner. I didn't know how far they had gone with their madness, but now I knew one thing. They wouldn't stop at anything. I peeked into Timmy's room. He was sleeping peacefully under the covers, his face soft and calm, though tired. His sleep was the only thing keeping me from spiraling into panic. I quietly shut the door, taking another look down the hallway. The darkness of Laura's house felt oppressive, like their shadows were lurking around every corner. I knew we couldn't stay here long. Tomorrow, everything would be decided.